Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The room is already familiar to the shape of your evening. Lamps throw a warm oval onto the rug. The bulb is soft enough that it almost seems to forget the corners. Your couch holds the slight impression of you still. The cushion where you've been sits with a memory of weight, a small, comfortable deformation. There is no grand settling ritual tonight, only the slow acknowledgement that you are here, and the day has finished its part. You move through this part of the night in small, deliberate slowness that doesn't call attention to itself. Your hand brushes the arm of the couch and finds the fabric cool and yielding. The stack of books on the low table gives off a faint scent of paper warmed earlier by hands. A second mug sits on the coaster beside yours, its rim bearing a faint ring, a leftover warmth dissipating into the room. This is the kind of household trace that signals company without explanation, the presence already put away into the shape of objects. It's a quiet reassurance rather than an announcement. Outside the window, the city breathes in measured cadence. A distant bus brakes, soft and familiar, a rhythm of neighborhoods moving on with their own private ordinariness. Streetlights stitch thin gold across the glass. You watch the reflection of the room in that dark pane and notice the way your lamp creates a small, safe world inside it. The window is both border and mirror, a reminder of the wide, cool night beyond, and the particular warmth of this interior. The separation feels useful rather than isolating. There is folded clothing on the back of a chair, a cardigan draped where it landed, sleeves arranged in a way that suggests someone took a moment and then forgot to smooth the fabric. A jacket hangs from a hook by the door, a habit of coming and going. These items hold faint traces, smells of rain from earlier, a faint trace of cologne or a sugared pastry from the day's streets. No labels, no stories attached out loud, simply the accumulation of living. The apartment is not staged, it is inhabited. That is what makes it honest, and it is what lets the night be something that can hold you without asking for explanation. Your phone is face down on the side table. Notifications rest in the quiet, unlit. You are content with that darkness. Earlier, attention was traded in different currencies. Small talk, a laugh that needed a response, a moment where you adjusted the line of yourself to meet someone else's expectations. Those exchanges are still warm in the chest, like embers that do not demand rekindling. You are not repairing anything. You are simply noticing how those small embers sit against the ribs. They are part of you now, folded into the soft architecture of this evening. There is a hum in the background, the refrigerator cycles, the building settles, pipes whisper their tiny histories through the walls. A neighbor's television leaks warmth through the ceiling in a rhythm you have come to recognize on certain nights. It is not intrusive, it is companionable, the sound of other nights continuing beside yours. The house holds multiple lives without fuss, and this gives you permission to occupy your corner without performance. You recognize in that quilted hush a kind of safety that does not require explanation. Your hands find a blanket folded at the end of the couch. It is the texture that first draws you, the subtle weight, the coolness where it has not been touched in a while. You unfold it a little and tuck it over your knees, more by habit than by need. The movement is small, domestic, and entirely within the rhythm of private care. The blanket carries the scent of the detergent you like, the clean, near-vanishing perfume of laundry. That scent is familiar in the way a favorite song is familiar. It does not ask anything of you, it simply is. There is a soft light on the bookshelf where a lamp casts slats of gold across the spines. You look at the titles for a long moment and then let your eyes rest on the blank space between them and the window. Sometimes the mind tries to name everything, every twinge, every residue of the day, like a list that must be cleared. Tonight there is no such urgency. You notice the small things instead, a crease in a page edge, the faint smear of ink where a pen rested too long, the way a little brass bookmark tilts when it sits in a certain book. These are modest presences that keep you company. They are the kind of intimacy that asks for nothing but attention. Your legs sink into the couch and find an ease that surprises you with its steadiness. The muscles unwinding is not a dramatic release. It is a slow, unremarked occurrence. Your shoulders lower a centimeter, and then another, like a door easing on its hinges. You allow your jaw to unclench. There is a softness that arrives through small adjustments rather than pronouncements. The air in the room is cool and steady enough to be almost neutral, neither warm nor cold, but simply the kind of atmosphere that permits small comforts. On the table, there is a dimly lit candle you forgot to light. It sits with a faint ring of wax and a wick, whispering unfinished intent. You look at it and smile, not because it needs to be lit, but because the idea of lighting a candle is almost enough. There is a tenderness in that unlit wick. It is both a plan you set aside and a possibility you do not have to enact. The night does not require that you perform tenderness. It allows you to keep it as potential. Sometimes you let your mind do nothing particular, and notice how that feels. Thoughts float by like small boats on a slow river. A memory of a remark, the way someone's laugh sounded, the taste of something sweet at lunch. None of them hold tight. They pass. The shapes they make are familiar, domestic in their own way, an ordinary parade of small events that feels significant only for the quiet attention you give them. You do not tally or judge, you watch. There is a gentle steadiness to that watching, like sitting with a friend who is reading across from you, sharing a comfortable silence. There is a softness to the evening that does not insist on being labeled. It sits like an unspoken agreement between you and the room. The traces of other people, the second mug, the folded sweater, the jacket on the hook, are proof of lives that intersected yours without demanding definition. They rest in the space as if to say that intimacy can be ordinary and practical and quiet. The night, in turn, responds by remaining unadorned and patient. You let your hands rest on your lap and feel the small rhythms of the body, pulse, breath, the faint movement of cloth against skin. Nothing requires correction tonight. The day has been heavy enough. This is the time of slow easing rather than repair. There is a mild satisfaction in the unexciting attention to small comforts, the particular tilt of the lamp, the way the blanket drapes, the even noise of the fridge. These are the instruments of rest here, tuned to low volume. If you look at the window again, you see a small constellation of lights across the neighboring building, each a tiny private world. The thought of them sits as an uninsistent companion. People with their own minor rituals, their own ways of putting themselves down gently after a day. You are part of that constellation in a quiet way. There is no headline, no resolution. There is only the slow, careful inhabiting of a private space where nothing more is required of you than to be present with what you already have. The night is unembellished, and that is enough. You hold the small warmth of the room like a soft cloth around your shoulders. The traces of the day rest as simply as the objects in the apartment. You do not need to justify them. You do not need to explain. The room accepts the aggregate of your hours in the gentle way. A home accepts the slow accumulation of presence. There is a particular kind of peace in that acceptance. Not loud or triumphant, but steady and near. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The room holds you in a kind of steady, low light that has nothing to prove. Lamps glow behind curtains, and their warmth gathers in little pockets where the furniture keeps it. The couch where you sit remembers the weight of you from earlier, its fabric slightly compressed at the same places every time, the cushion keeping the memory without comment. There is a second mug on the coffee table, a dark ring at its lip, and the faint trace of someone else's way of holding it. The presence quiets rather than complicates the space. A folded sweater rests across the back of a chair, the familiarity of an arm's scent tucked into its weave, and a stack of books slouches in a corner as if waiting to be picked up again tomorrow. These things are ordinary. They are evidence of living, not of performance. You notice your jaw before anything else. It has been busy all day, responding to sounds and pauses, clenching as conversations required small defenses. Now it loosens without your scheduling it. The muscles that have been taut along your cheeks and under your ears release like a secret letting go, a small untying. Your tongue finds a less attentive place in your mouth, no longer kept in readiness, and your lips part slightly. Not because you planned it, but because the day's commentary has wound down, and the silence here makes room for a different kind of focus. A single ray of streetlight crosses the window and creates a pale, moving stripe on the opposite wall. The movement is slow, not demanding. It passes through layers of glass, reflected onto the dark surface, and then carried across to a book's spine, a thread of light that changes without insisting on being seen. You follow it briefly and realize that following it is easy. Your eyelids are not ordered to close. They simply feel less compelled to sweep the room. Sight lessens its grip in small increments, like a curtain being eased rather than dropped. Your shoulders are a map of the day's posture, lines showing where stress lodged itself. They are not being corrected or instructed. They are simply sliding to a more honest place, as if gravity remembered them as home. Each breath makes a gentle suggestion, and the shoulders respond, moving minutely, calibrating. The muscles along your neck let go of their hyper-vigilant arrangement. The space where your hands meet your thighs becomes soft. Fingers that earlier clenched around a cup, or typed, or steadied a conversation, uncurl and rest, heavy enough to be acknowledged, but light enough not to be attended to. There is a hum against the edge of hearing that stitches the room together, the refrigerator's small, steady voice, the building settling its bones, a distant train like a line drawn far away. None of these claim attention. They are companions in the background, familiar as someone humming the same tune in another room. They keep time with you in the loosest sense, like a neighbor's presence that reassures without asking for stories. You can feel the fabric of the couch where it meets your skin. It gives to you in the exact measure you need, not lavishly, not stingily. It is the kind of surface that knows how to hold someone who has already shown up to their own life. The texture is soft and plain, carrying a faint scent of detergent and the night outside. Not a smell that announces identity or intention, but one that simply registers as domestic. When you shift, the cushions accommodate and settle into a new shape, as if to say they have done this before and will do it again. No drama attached. Your feet, for much of the day, tuned to angles in city sidewalks and desk edges, find a quieter angle against the rug. The toes ungrip the pattern beneath, and the arch softens. There is a small pleasure in the coolness where the floor meets the skin, the way a surface can hold contact that is neither urgent nor distant. It is the kind of touch that teaches you how to be still by example. The legs, which carried you through movement, now take on the gravity of being carried themselves. You notice the slow, almost indecisive quality of your thoughts. They are not racing toward problems or solutions. They are skimming like small stones across a shallow stream, touching and letting go. Pieces of the day surface, a laugh that felt genuine, a look that stayed a moment too long, the clink of cutlery at a shared table. Each memory appears without insistence and dissolves gently, leaving only a residue of calm. There is no pressure to make meaning. Allowing things to be unexamined is not neglect here. It is rest. There is a private comfort in the small traces of other people who belong to this apartment. A second toothbrush in the bathroom carries a history of mornings and late nights. A jacket slung over the banister has a flap turned the way someone else likes it turned. These are not declarations. They are the texture of living with chosen people in ordinary ways. Their presence is not performed for an audience. It simply exists, like the way light through blinds marks the hour, without asking for attention. You find in that quiet arrangement a small reprieve. The evidence of company does not require explanation. It offers a soft punctuation to the solitude you currently inhabit. Your breath, when you notice it, is neither shallow nor forced. It picks up the pace of the room's slow rhythm, and there is an awareness that the body tends toward ease when given the space. The chest expands and contracts with no assigned meaning. It is simply doing what it always does, and you watch this basic competence with a kind of surprised gratitude that is not dramatic, only appreciative. Gratitude here is not a task but a whisper, a recognition of what is functioning without grand statements. There is a small lamp on the side table you could reach for, its pull chain waiting like a gentle promise. The light it gives would be warm and immediate, a button-down kind of comfort. You do not move yet to touch it. Instead, you dwell in the dimness and let its imagined glow suggest shapes without imposing them. The shadows in the corners soften into ambiguous shapes. Folded clothes, a bag unwiped from the day. Things that carry lives without being loud about them. The ambiguity is restful because it does not demand interpretation. Outside, the night breathes coolly. You can hear leaves or paper moving. Maybe it is a neighbor walking a dog. Maybe it is the wind negotiating the edges of the building. These sounds are familiar and belongingless, the kind of background that lets you belong somewhere without ceremony. Back, inside, the living room is arranged in a manner that feels made for evenings like this, modest, a little worn, honest. It is a space that holds multiplicity without needing to name it. As your body continues this gentle descent from alertness, there is no sudden collapse, no theatrical surrender. The lowering happens through tiny, almost trivial relaxations. A shoulder sliding an inch down, the hand losing a fraction of its tension, the throat finding a less strained cadence. Each small shift is its own quiet victory, unadvertised and sincere. The room accepts these adjustments as if they were expected. Nothing sets a deadline. No one else is watching. You stay with the subtleties, how your neck prefers a slight tilt, how the blanket over your knees settles differently when you change position, how a page of a magazine flutters when you exhale. These small sensations accumulate like quiet confidences. They tell you what your body needs without speaking in declarations. They teach you, in the gentlest way, how to let go a finger at a time rather than all at once. Tonight, the lowering is not about abandoning yourself. It is about recognizing that muscles kept for action can be repurposed for rest, that attention can thin out into presence. There is an ease that comes not from solving anything, but from letting the day's purchases be unpaid, for a little while. The room continues to hum and settle. The second mug cools a little more. The jacket remains where it was slung. You remain where you chose to be, moving through small, unremarkable unwinding, and the evening accommodates you without question. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp on the side table throws a low, round pool of light. It makes the couch look like a small island. The cushions softened where you sat earlier. The upholstery holding the curve of your body as if it remembers. Outside, the night keeps its cool, a thin blue beyond the glass. Inside, the light is warm enough to keep the edges of the room gentle. There is no urgency here. There is only the slow, deliberate letting of the day slide off. You notice the little things first. A second mug set beside yours, slightly damp at the rim. A sweater folded and left where someone last took it off. A small stack of books with a pair of reading glasses perched on top. The objects are unremarkable in daylight, but in this hour, they read like small, tender gestures. They suggest someone else's presence without insisting on memory or narrative. They sit in the room with you, not crowding, not asking. That quiet companionship, familiar and unforced, Feels like a room that's been inhabited by people who know how to leave space for each other's private weather. You move slowly, a hand on the arm of the couch, fingertips finding the slight give of the fabric, and you let yourself stay there a beat longer than you might during the day. The apartment hums softly, a refrigerator motor, breathing, a distant washer, cycling when it will, the building settling into its own small noises. These are the mechanical lullabies of shared adulthood. They are not interruptions. They are the background that says life continues beyond the walls in a cadence you can count on. The window shows a slice of the outside, a streetlight halo, faint passing cars, a shadow that could be the outline of a tree. Reflections run like echoes across the glass. The lamp, the silhouette of the couch, the soft geometry of a stack of folded clothes. You watch them overlap, thinking of how the interior life of a room overlays the world outside. Nothing requires explanation. The arrangement of objects, the slight disorder, the deliberate softness of light, these are enough to say who belongs here, and that here has always been meant to cradle small, unremarked needs. There is a leftover note folded in half on the coffee table. Its words are private and not meant for rehearsal. You read the edge and then set it down without replaying its message. It is enough that it exists, a marker of attention given and received. Sometimes care lives as a thing in a room, a cup warmed by another's hands, a scarf left where it will be found. And that quietness of care speaks more loudly than tidy gestures. It asks for nothing but to exist. Your breath is a gentle metronome. You can feel how the day collected itself along your shoulders and spine, and how the act of being still eases it. Not by fixing, but by allowing its weight to disperse into the chair. There is residue of feeling that doesn't need sorting. It sits like a soft fabric, draped over the back of a chair. Noticeable, present, and acceptable to be seen without remedy. This room does not react to the residue. It makes room for it. It holds it alongside the ordinary things, a lamp, a coat, a second mug. You think of conversations that stayed half-stitched, of small exposed edges from the day. They are not problems to solve in this hour. Instead, they are quiet textures, like the faint scratch of a record at the beginning of a familiar song. You can let the scratch be part of the listening. You let your hand find the second mug, feel the warmth that lingers, the slight oil from fingers that held it earlier. That trace reads like company. It is not a demand. It simply says someone else was here, and that this home is roomy enough for lives to overlap without explanations. The air holds a neutral, clean scent, linen and the last of dinner, a faint echo of the evening walk. It is not sharp. It does not announce itself. At the edge of smell is the hint of a perfume, or soap, left on a sleeve, where it brushed the couch. Small intimacies live in such things without needing to be named. They are private signposts that guide how you move through the space, slower, softer, with the permission to be small and unresolved. You allow your thoughts to meander. There is a particular softness in having thoughts that do not require smoother endings. They come up in small clusters, an image, a sentence, a half-remembered laugh, and you let them sit beside you like quiet visitors. There is no pressure to entertain them or to make them leave. You acknowledge their presence with a light attention and then return to the room. The lamp, the cushions, the stack of folded clothes. These things are steady and unjudging. You notice the way the couch's fabric gives under your weight, the small sound of fibers stretching and settling. It is a domestic symphony. Minor creaks, the hush of breath, the occasional rustle when you shift. These sounds have no urgency. They mark the slow choreography of living in a place you can afford to inhabit without being performance. The quiet is roomy and forgiving. It lets the residue of emotion exist as part of its texture, rather than as a thing to be fixed. There is a softness in the light that makes edges blur. The jacket thrown over the back of a chair becomes a silhouette rather than a garment. A pair of shoes near the door looks like a small, gentle punctuation. You find comfort in anonymity within familiarity. The room knows you, but does not insist on being a mirror. It offers you a place to lay down the day's visible and invisible bits and let them lie where they will. You are permitted to be simply present, no explanation required. The sense of safety here is quiet and deliberate. It is the knowledge that your things will still be where you left them, that traces of others can exist without intruding, that the night will pass in its own way. You do not tidy every loose end. You do not smooth every wrinkle. Instead, you allow the room to be hospitable to the small messes that mark a life carefully attended to, but not polished for view. In that allowance, there is a particular tenderness. It is an intimacy that does not demand performance, just shared space and the mutual, and the tabish consent to let things be imperfect. You let your gaze return repeatedly to the window, where the reflection and the street outside overlap in soft layers. There is a comfort in not having to decide which layer is truer. You can be here in the warmth, with all the small signs of company and the quiet residue of the day. The room doesn't rush you toward any clarity. It holds open a soft margin where feelings can linger, without being asked to become narratives or solutions. As time moves, the night outside deepens a degree, and the apartment seems a little more private, a little more insulated. The second mug waits like a companionable presence that might be picked up tomorrow. The folded sweater rests patiently on the chair. The note keeps its quiet, and you leave it be. Everything is in its place, not because it has been arranged to impress, but because it has been arranged to be lived in. That gentleness of arrangement is a language of care that never speaks loudly, it simply allows. In the hush, you feel a subtle loosening. The day's stitches come undone in small, unremarkable ways. Not dramatic, not relieving, simply settling. There is a comfortable, wordless permission to be where you are. Tired, thoughtful, unfinished. The room is a steady witness. It requires no explanation, offers no fixes, and into that withholding of remedies, it gives you room to exist exactly as you are for this hour and this small stretch of night. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You shift the weight of your legs against the couch and let the small, familiar creak happen without thinking about it. The sound is part of the furniture's language, an agreement between the thing and you that it will hold. For a while, your thoughts have been busy, like people packing up. After a party, voices and laughter and the precise way skin remembers pressure. But now they loosen their grip, stepping back so you can notice how the room holds you instead. The lamp on the side table makes a soft, warm pool of light that doesn't ask anything of you. It rests there, indifferent and companionable, and you rest into that indifferent company like into a chair you've always liked coming home to. Your attention slides along the edges of what's close. The cushion under you gives with a familiar ease. It is neither new nor brittle, but settled and slightly flattened where you have been before. Your sweater catches at your shoulder and then smooths back against your skin. A small, quiet reminder of texture and habit. You follow the curve of that sensation, not like you are looking for meaning in it, only registering how cloth against bare forearm is a simple, grounding fact. Your hand finds a book folded face down on the coffee table. Pages slightly fanned as though someone had paused mid-thought and left it there. The spine is softened by use, the corners a little nicked. You don't open it, you enjoy the contained promise of words that exist without needing you to attend to them. There are traces of other nights and other bodies in the room that don't require explanation. A second mug sits near the coasters, the indentation in its side familiar from another pair of fingers. The scent that hovers around it is not loud enough to insist on a story. It lingers like a memory that has been folded and placed in a pocket. A jacket draped over a chair has the gentle slump of someone who trusted this space enough to remove layers and leave them where they fell. These small things are the quiet architecture of a life that includes others without spectacle. They make the apartment feel inhabited in a way that is warm rather than performative, like a playlist that runs in the background of living. Outside the window, the city breathes in slow, patient rhythms. Streetlights pool into soft ovals on the glass, and the occasional passing headlights smear into lines that move and then are gone. You let your eyes follow those movements like a cat tracking moths, curious but not urgent, watching the world move on its own schedule. Inside, the hum of the refrigerator becomes a low, steady note you can use as an anchor if you want one. The building settles with quiet pops that sound less like buildings and more like the body of a room, exhaling. There is no need to name any of this. You can simply feel how the world is both close and separate, letting you be in it without demanding to be processed. Your limbs find themselves rearranging for comfort. A foot nudges a throw blanket that has been folded near the arm of the couch, and the fabric warms to your skin. The throw is familiar. Its weave remembers the nook between lamplight and the couch, like a recipe that does not need to be repeated. The zipper of your jacket, left half-zipped on the chair, glints faintly in the lamplight and catches your eye for a moment. You notice how small metallic things make precise sounds and audible punctuation in the quiet that register like punctuation marks in the slow sentence of the evening. You are not making decisions about them. You are acknowledging their presence, letting them weave into the texture of the room. There is a softness to the air tonight, as if the apartment has remembered to be kind. The temperature settles in an easy place, not imposing warmth, not a chill, but a neutral hospitality that allows skin to be without dramatics. You notice the faint scent of detergent on the folded clothes at the end of the armchair, and it feels like someone is paying quiet attention to keeping the space neutral and approachable. A stack of dishes sits near the sink, drying steam fading into the light. Their presence suggests a small, recent gathering or a comfortable evening shared and left midway through. Those ordinary interruptions of domestic life feel like proof that you inhabit a place where time is allowed to be messy and gentle at once. Your thoughts, which earlier moved quickly between images and snatches of conversation, now unspool into something less linear. Instead of replaying the exact words of moments that still feel sharp, you catch the echo of a laugh, the way a particular phrase sounded when someone else said it, and then allow that echo to sit without needing to amplify. The mind begins to favor sensations over stories. The weight of your hands on your lap, the slight pressure of the cushion at your hips, the way the room's light softens the edges of things. This is not forgetting. It is a deliberate narrowing of attention, a turning toward what is immediate and tactile. It is a temporary truce with narrative where small, quiet facts take precedence. In the peripheral glow, you can see the outlines of things that map your life. A bookshelf leaning under paperbacks and a few small plants that have been coaxed through seasons. A lamp whose shade is slightly dented on one side from an afternoon of clumsy movement. Magnets on the fridge, holding postcards that no longer travel anywhere but still arrive in the mail of memory. These objects are not trophies or displays. They are references, gentle markers that tell you where you've been and who has passed through. They do not demand performances of identity. They simply exist, as you do, in their own plain, unostentatious way. There is a comfort in the predictability of small routines that do not require speech. The placement of a coaster, the habit of leaving keys in the same bowl, the way the curtains are allowed to hang rather than drawn tight, these choices feel like private rituals. They are not declarations, but they create a map of care. Care for the space, care for those who might share it, and care for the self who returns to it night after night. You find solace in such routine, not because it answers questions, but because it provides a soft scaffolding to rest against. Your awareness settles more easily into these small details than it does into abstract resolutions. You let your gaze soften and rest on the parts of the room that hold the most light. The shadows collect in corners the lamp does not reach, but they are not empty. They keep small things safe from scrutiny. Your attention moves like a considerate guest, lingering where warmth is offered and giving privacy to those places that prefer it. You recognize a gentle refrain in the way your breathing rearranges itself around the room's tempo, how the cadence of silence shapes itself into something you can inhabit. There is no demand to make anything right or finished. There is only the invitation to be present with what is here: objects, sensations, memory fragments, without urgency. Slowly, attention continues to tilt inward, but it does so through the body rather than through a need to resolve past moments. The weight of your shoulders, the way your jaw eases when you stop testing it, the small relief where a muscle, relaxes. These are the measures you allow tonight. They are quiet, incremental changes, not conclusions. The apartment keeps its lamp on. The second mug stays on the table, and the city continues to move beyond the glass. In this small, domestic landscape, you can be contained and held without spectacle. You are not required to explain any of it. You are simply present, letting the world and your body meet in unhurried, careful ways. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You move around the apartment with the kind of care that comes from a day that required more of you than the tasks on a list. The lamp by the couch is already on, its light a small, deliberate warmth that makes the living room feel like a private room in a larger world. Shadows settle gently along the bookshelves, along the soft place where the couch has been pressed in by the weight of earlier sitting. The cushions remember the shape of you, like an old friend remembers the cadence of a voice. They give in without fuss, and you let them. A second mug sits near the edge of the coffee table, cool now. Its saucer has a faint ring, an outline of where warmth once pooled. You know the person it belonged to. Someone who left the cup there when they stood up to clear a plate. Someone who left a laugh behind in the air like a scent. Those traces are small and unobtrusive, not exactly calling you back, but present enough to alter the room's architecture. They become part of the furniture, another soft edge you navigate by habit. Beyond the curtains, the night is a color without texture. City lights breathe in slow pulses, and the distant sounds of other lives stitch into the hum of the building. The radiator clicks softly, a companionable punctuation, and the refrigerator offers a low, indifferent drone. Everything moves at its own unhurried pace, none of it demanding anything of you. The air smells faintly of laundry detergent and something outside, a wetness from an earlier rain, or the green of a tree-lined street. You notice these things the way you notice someone across a room smiling, not to catalog them, but because they shift the mood of the space. Earlier conversations live as gentle impressions at the edges of your attention. A message you half read on your phone sits folded away between your fingers and the couch arm. The screen dim like a photograph, left to rest face down. There was a moment today where you made yourself seen. It was bright for a minute and then softened into a later quiet. The memory of that brightness is not sharp enough to make you relive it, only to give the present a light it didn't have before. You feel the aftertaste of being visible, comforting, odd, like sugar dissolved in tea. It's there but not crowding the cup. You notice the way the blanket drapes over the back of the chair, a familiar knit with a small snag in the corner where you once caught it on your fingers. The snag is unremarkable. It is one of those small, private details that belong to the place where you live, a map of past evenings. A jacket hangs over the doorway, its collar softened by fingers that have worn it often. On the mantel, a stack of folded clothing sits tidy and honest. not arranged to impress, but to be found later when it is needed. These objects are chosen family. They do not announce themselves, and yet they are a network, an arrangement that says you are not entirely alone in how you have organized your life. Your hands rest on your knees and find the texture of denim and soft skin under the fabric. There is a residual warmth there from movement, from the small human engine you inhabit. You consider how your shoulders have learned to hold less at night, how the muscles along your back unclench when you're allowed to be ordinary. The body remembers contact even after it stops. An arm brushed against yours on a bus, a hand that lingered in a passing handshake, the press of palms while moving a load of dishes. Those impressions have a way of becoming part of the room, collecting in corners and in the space behind your ribs where thought can settle. Through the window, the world is indifferent in a comforting way. Houses wear their lights like private declarations. A neighbor's radio hums, too low to catch a lyric, and a bicycle bell rings, somewhere in the distance, and then is gone. You think about nothing in particular, and then about everything in a kind of gentle blur. There is a softness to your attention now, the way you let your focus go slack around edges. It is not empty, it is merely unpinned, allowed to float and rest against whatever surface the room offers. You move slowly toward the kitchen and run a finger along the countertop, feeling the slight coolness of tile. A plate from dinner stands quietly in the sink, the remnants of a shared meal made of simple things. Something that tasted like care but not grandness. The fork lays beside it, threading its way through a cloth napkin with the ease of something that will be washed when it needs to be. The domestic objects here are not staged. They are the residue of living. That residue has a calming quality, a proof that moments of attention are enough to shape an evening into something like solace. There is a photograph in a small frame on the shelf, the edges slightly worn from being moved between apartments. It shows a cluster of bodies leaning into each other in a way that could be described as ordinary closeness. People with different jackets, different laughter lines, sharing a single blanket at the edge of a park. The image is blurred at the edges, not because the photographer meant it, but because the moment itself was lived and not scrutinized. You look at it and feel a warmth that is quiet and not obligating. It is not a promise, only a record, small proof that you have been held. You take up the second mug and balance it in both hands, appreciating the gentle weight. The coldness of porcelain reminds you of glass pressed to your lips during earlier conversations, raised in gentle acknowledgement rather than spectacle. Holding the mug feels like holding something described simply: a place, a quiet warmth, a material connection to now. You set it back down with no hurry, no effort to make it mean more than it is. The room stretches into a hush that is thick and comfortable, like a sweater you have chosen because it is familiar rather than fashionable. Your breathing settles into its own quiet rhythm, a soft punctuation to the room's low sounds. Memory and present breathe on one another without fighting. One leans into the other. Scenes from earlier fade into atmospheric color. The tilt of a head while listening. The way someone's hands moved when they were telling you about a small victory. The pause that came before a joke. They are not demands. They are the soft furnishings of the night. You notice a small practical kindness near the door. A pair of slippers pushed together as if they were in conversation, angled toward the inside of the apartment. The small sign of intentional arrival makes the whole space feel held. It is an ordinary chasteness of belonging, not ceremonial, but very particular. These markers of life require no explanation. They are simply part of how you have learned to keep yourself company. Now, the evening moves without agenda. You allow your attention to wander over the room, from the muted wallpaper to the low pile rug that catches the edge of your socks. Each object is an unspoken companion. All of them together make a quiet ecosystem, where being visible during the day can rest without needing to be replayed. The impressions of earlier interactions dissolve slowly into background warmth, like color seeping through a cup of tea, until it becomes simply pleasant. You give yourself permission, not in words, but in the way you do not reach to fix anything, to stay present with this softness. The air holds you with a benign patience that does not pry or investigate. Outside, the night continues, indifferent and steady. Inside, the lamp keeps a simple vigil. There is no making up for anything here, no tallying. Just the evening, arranged around the relaxed architecture of you, holding space in the manner of a household that knows how to keep its own quiet. You find the room the way it has been after other long evenings, lit by one low lamp that throws its circle of honey across the rug and leaves the corners soft with shadow. The couch still holds the impression of you where you sat earlier, a subtle dip in the cushion like a remembered shape. A second mug sits on the coffee table, the rim cool, a pale ring of steam long since disappeared. A jacket hangs over the back of a chair, with the deliberate casualness of someone who plans to come back for it, and a folded sweater rests on the arm of the couch as if it simply surrendered mid-fold. These small arrangements are the architecture of domestic life here at night. No fanfare, only signals that other lives intersect with yours, and then untangle themselves into the ordinary. In the quiet, the parts of you that tend to narrate the day begin to lose their foothold. The running commentary that climbs over the events, the small judgments and the tall imaginings, the lists that insist on being finished. Those voices don't vanish so much as step down from the stage. You notice the space they leave, a gentle slackening behind the sternum, an easing under the jaw where tension had made a habit of perching. Your body shows you, in practical terms, that tonight is for recovery, rather than for parsing everything. There is no urgency, only the unclench of muscles that have been holding onto posture and readiness all day. You let your hands rest somewhere that feels natural, a palm against the fabric of the couch, fingertips tracing the weave, without planning an outcome. The texture is plain and honest, not designed to impress, only to support. The lamp makes the threads look warmer than they might under noonlight. Outside, the night keeps moving in its own measured way. A distant car, muted by the city's geography. A window across the street that throws a pale rectangle into a dark wall. The faint accordion sigh of the building settling into itself. Those sounds remind you that other things carry on without your oversight, and that is an oddly comforting fact. The evening is not your responsibility to complete. The urge to examine everything that happened earlier is present like a habitual itch. It comes in soft, insistent nudges, rather than sharp alarms. You notice how you used to respond to this, by replaying, correcting, rehearsing explanations for events that have already occurred. Tonight the replay arrives and then tapers, like a radio dial finding a station and then letting it fade. You do not reach for answers. You do not gather conclusions. Instead, you allow the motions to arrange themselves into something simpler, the acceptance of a pause. The pause is not empty, it is generous, the kind of roomy silence that holds the weight of a day without trying to transform it into meaning. There are traces of other bodies in the space that feel intimate without naming anything more than familiarity. A pair of keys rests where someone set them down, nicked edges catching the lamp's light. A paperback with a torn spine lies open, face down on the table. A note tucked inside between pages that have been read and reread. You notice the faint scent of cologne on the scarf folded on the back of a chair, faint enough to be a suggestion rather than a statement. These traces make the apartment feel lived in a way that is deeply private and quietly safe. They are reminders of companionship that does not demand performance, small domestic footprints that say, simply, that other people have occupied this space with tenderness and normalcy. Your breathing slows without effort. not because you are trying, but because the body knows how to find its own rhythm. It recognizes this night as a place for lowering the volume of the day. There is a certain wisdom in that recognition. It doesn't require your permission. Muscles that had been tight around the shoulders melt a degree at a time. Your hands rest more loosely. The pace of thought follows suit, not halted but softened, like ink diluted with water until its edges feather and unfocus. You feel less like a person who needs to arrange things into neat lines, and more like someone allowing arrangement to occur around them. Soft folds of cloth, a lamp left on, a cup cooling. You watch the window without intending to analyze what it reveals. The glass is a dark mirror with occasional reflections, a sliver of lamp, the faint outline of your own head leaning back against the cushion. Beyond it, the night is a cool presence, distant and unobtrusive, offering a different temperature to the warm room. The junction of warm and cool creates a kind of balance that feels like a private agreement. It's purely sensory, but it holds an edge of reassurance. The world outside is not pressing in. It is acknowledged and then allowed to continue doing what it does, separate from the slow work happening inside this room. There is an ease to small tasks tonight. You rinse the mug because it seems right, but you do not scrub it into perfection. You fold the sweater because the motion is comforting, not because there is a looming standard to meet. The absence of exactness becomes a kind of grace. Items are tended to with a softness that implies acceptance rather than correction. Folding is not an erasure, it is a way of making the space hospitable again, allowing the apartment to remain recognizably yours without insisting on performance. In these motions, you find a tender arithmetic, things aligned, enough to be restful, not arranged into a display. You think of conversations from earlier with a muted fondness rather than a need to replay every phrase. The memory of a laugh becomes more like a light left on, a small warmth you can return to at will, not a lantern that must be held aloft. Sentences that felt unsteady in the moment now rest in the softer light, no longer demanding revision. There is room for nuance here, things that are not concluded, feelings that are not sorted into labeled boxes. The unfinalized edges are allowed to exist as part of the texture of the evening, like the slightly frayed seam on a favorite cushion that nonetheless still offers support. Time takes on the unhurried quality of someone moving through a house they know well, pausing to look at small things without needing to rearrange them. You sense your internal machinery settling, the parts that keep track of roles, the parts that run a silent tally of obligations, the parts that respond reflexively to visibility and exposure. All of them loosen their grips. You remain whole and complex, but tonight complexity is not an active project. Instead, it is a backdrop, like wallpaper you have chosen and grown used to. The foreground belongs to gentleness, to the plain kindness of doing little things in low light. Everything about the room says you are allowed to be less than thorough and still be fine. The hum of the refrigerator in the background, the soft weight of the blanket folded over the foot of the couch, the steady arc of the lamp's glow. These are ordinary constancies that do not require explanation. They are quiet assurances embedded in the rhythms of a small home. You notice how safe it feels to have a space that does not demand a performance of strength or clarity, only the presence of someone who needs a pause. The pause itself gathers into something like recovery, slow, deliberate, unassuming. You do not resolve anything. There is no tidy conclusion at the end of the evening. Instead, there is the soft accumulation of rest-ready moments. A mug rinsed and set to drain. A sweater folded and left in the faint lamplight. A paperback closed and placed with the face-down habit of someone who knows they will return. The night continues beyond the window, indifferent and gentle. Inside, you remain lodged in a state that is neither achievement nor failure, just the quiet, deliberate letting go of brightness in favor of warmth. The body meets that decision with relief that is small and untheatrical, and you let it be enough. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You sit with the lamp low enough that it flatters the room without revealing everything. The light pools on the coffee table and makes the mugs look like small, quiet moons. One of them is yours. The other is closer to the edge. A little steam crusted at its lip where it cooled, a pale ring left behind. It is not necessary to know who placed it there. The presence of that second vessel traces a human shape without calling it out. And the room holds that trace as gently as a folded sweater. Your shoulders feel a beat looser than they did earlier, as if the day has been peeled away in thin layers. The couch remembers the exact shape where you sat for a while. The cushion gives and lifts with a familiarity that does not judge. Against the backrest, a scarf lies in an absent-minded fold, its fringe splayed at an angle. The fabric cools in the quiet, and your fingers hover over it, settling into not sweeping and not tidying. There is an ease in leaving things as they are tonight, an implicit agreement between you and the room that not everything must be smoothed out before night can be true. Outside, the city is a distant hush, softened by double-pane glass and the hush of weather, pretending not to intrude. You can hear a car pass, faint and deliberate, tires on wet pavement or dry, it does not matter. It moves the way all passing things move, brief, unobtrusive, leaving the stillness intact. The curtain flutters a little when a cool draft finds its way through the frame, and the motion casts shadow scrapes across the sofa. You like the way those shadows make familiar objects look a touch more private, as if the room were a secret that has agreed to contain itself. There is a bowl on the windowsill with 2 small, bruised lemons. You remember planning to use them for something useful, then choosing not to, and finally deciding that their yellow was enough. They sit undecided between usefulness and ornament, offering scent if squeezed, but content to merely be. That indecision seems tuned to the evening, the not much doing of it, and you find a quiet relief in that. You let your eyes rest on the lemons and allow a small, indulgent softness to take the edge off the ache you didn't notice until now. On the bookshelf, books are stacked with the casual authority of a life, being lived, not curated. Some spines face out, a few titles visible, others tucked sideways as if they had been plucked and read and set down again without ceremony. A notebook lies half closed, a pen slipped between pages like a bookmark that isn't entirely certain of its place. You imagine the traces of hands on its cover, the tiny smears of ink that say someone was here and left something of themselves in a small, ordinary way. The idea of other hands being present in the living space does not press. It simply warms the edges of the room, like a second low lamp. You find your gaze drifting to the blanket folded over the arm of the couch. It was folded earlier with a certain impatience, and then smoothed again with care. An action that belongs to an evening that decided to be easy on itself. The texture is soft, worn cotton, maybe a little slubbed at the corners, and when you run your palm across it, you feel the slight resistance that belongs to fabric that has been held and washed and held again. There is something forgiving about it, the kind of texture that does not demand refinement. It accepts your weight in the way that the couch does, making room rather than insisting you change. You are aware of how the air moves around you, the way it leans cool against the top of your hands and warmer where it rests against your throat. Scent is barely there, a trace of soap, a faint, comforting musk of neutral detergent, the ghost of dinner left in the memory of the saucepan on the stove. Nothing is sharp. Nothing needs to command your attention. The quiet is not empty. It is furnished with small, deliberate things that say, someone has chosen to live like this, with thoughtful sloppiness and care, not performance. There are clothes on the chair. Yesterday's shirt, a jacket that still holds the shape of another shoulder, socks that escape the laundry basket in a dignified tumble. They make the night resemble a pause more than an ending, a paused conversation, a pause film. the deliberate refusal to fold life down into the tidy shape society expects. The arrangement is not careless, it is chosen. There is a comfort in this particular kind of domestic honesty, where objects are allowed to accumulate without shame. You let that comfort sit beside you like an unspoken friend. Your hands move through small rituals without agenda. You roll the rim of your mug between your fingers, testing temperature and remembering the weight of it in your palm. The sound of your own movements is notable for its softness, the clink of ceramic, the rustle of fabric, the minute shush of your breath. Even these small noises feel like company, like living proof that you exist in this place, that you have permission to be gentle with yourself. There is no rush to do more than what you are doing right now, occupying a space, honoring its quiet, and letting it honor you back by staying calm. The window reflects a fraction of your face, not entirely, just enough to remind you of your lines. Eyes softened, jaw unclenched, a hair out of place that makes the whole image a truer self than any carefully composed selfie could be. You imagine that someone else might see you now and not need an explanation. You think of a hand placed absently on the armrest you do not own, of a laugh that no longer needs to land loudly to register as real. Those thoughts arrive like soft weather without storm or forecast, and they pass without insistence. As the room eases, your mind follows the pattern of the evening, rounded, then quieter, then soft as the fabric under your hand. Thoughts that earlier pressed you, about things said and unsaid, about the small failures and the small triumphs, drift toward the edges. They do not vanish and you do not fix them. They become background texture, like the distant hum of a refrigerator, or the mellow creak of the building settling. You hold them as one holds a warm beverage, with appreciation for its warmth and no compulsion to gulp it down. Time here loses its sharp lines. Minutes blur into one another with a generous slowness. You notice how much energy it takes to insist on being anything other than present in this way, and how gentle it is to let go of that insistence. The room does not mirror your expectations. It simply does what rooms do, allowing you to be in it, accepting the shape you bring. There is a small grace in that steadiness, a quiet permission that needs no slogan or sign. It just is. In this softened hour, you find the edges of yourself rounding, not in a way that erases texture, but in a way that makes roughness less sharp. The knots in your chest unthread a little, not because they are solved, but because they are acknowledged by the steadiness around them. You let a small part of your vigilance lower, enough to rest, not enough to abandon care. The space holds onto the details that matter, the mugs, the stacked dishes in the sink, the jacket slung over the chair, the lamp keeping watch. These things are quiet witnesses, and that is all you need tonight. You do not conclude anything here. The evening gives no verdict. It offers a kind of patient company made of ordinary things, and the knowledge that rest is not a finishing line. It is an ongoing practice of letting the day ease out of you with as much gentleness as you can offer, and allowing the room to receive you without comment. Your breathing aligns with that acceptation, steady and slow, in rhythm with the lamp's small halo. The night keeps its cool beyond the glass, and you stay warm enough in a room intentionally uncomplicated, exactly as you are. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You are in the familiar arc of the apartment at night, the way the lamp over the sofa pools its light like a small private sun. The rest of the room is shaded, the corners softened where the light doesn't reach. The window is a dark rectangle with a smear of reflected lamplight, and beyond that, the city breathing in low, distant rhythms. The sounds are thin, tires on wet pavement somewhere far down, a neighbor's television softened by walls, the building itself settling into its own slow exhale. Everything feels held, as if the night has agreed to be careful around what you bring into it. There is a second mug on the low table, a small, familiar presence that speaks of company, without needing to account for how that company arrived. It sits cooling, a faint ring of steam long gone, living proof of someone else's hands having balanced the ceramic beside yours. A jacket hangs on the back of a chair, sleeves folded one into the other, the way someone does when they're leaving a place with the intention of coming back. A pile of folded clothes is stacked on the arm of a chair, edges softened from being handled and rehung, and handled again, until the fabric has learned the contours of the room. These traces do not demand explanations. They merely assert that life has been shared here, quiet and ordinary in the best way. You notice the small things because the day has loosened its urgency. Your fingers find the fabric of the throw, and you let the texture tell you about itself. The weave gives under touch and springs back with discretion, like a conversation that doesn't need an answer. The couch is warm where you sat earlier, its indentation familiar and trusted, and you let your weight settle into that exact place. There is nothing to accomplish in doing so. The presence of a familiar cushion beneath your shoulders is enough. The lamp casts shadows that move with you, slow and companionable, and the shadows keep a respectful distance. On the shelf, a stack of books leans gently, not rigid, just enough that it seems like someone might pick one up if the mood shifted. A bookmark peeks out of the top volume, paper softened from handling. Nearby, a small plant leans toward the light, its leaves matte and steady. The plant knows night as much as day. Its quiet persistence is part of the room's grammar. There is a comfort in these domestic reliables, the objects that have been asked nothing of except to exist where they belong. They do not request confession. They do not require explanation. Your phone is face down, pale screen dim against the table. Messages have stopped arriving in a rush. The last ones lie small and patient in their threads. There is no pressure in that silence. It is not empty. It is a space you have not had to fill yet. You are aware of the impression of yourself and other people's messages, how you were earlier, how your tone traveled in text, and you let that awareness rest without unpacking it. There is a soft fatigue from being seen. It lingers like a perfume. You do not have to disassemble it tonight. The knowledge that visibility occurred earlier sits beside you like a small lamp of its own, warm and steady, not demanding you explain the shape of what was exposed. You find your attention drifting to the window. The city beyond is awash of low lights and shadows moving slowly across surfaces. A delivery truck's light passes, a narrow white ribbon, and then it is swallowed by night. The cool air beyond the glass makes the pane feel slightly colder, where your fingertips touch it and then release. The coolness against skin is honest and uncomplicated. It does not ask you to perform for it. You like that exchange, brief, accurate, private. There is a certain relief in the world, being true to itself, without asking anything of you. The room holds traces of laughter folded into the creases of the sofa fabric, a rumble remembered in the way a cushion refuses to sit perfectly flat. The hum of the refrigerator is steady, the sound small and domestic, keeping time with the quiet. There is a faint scent of the evening, clean fabric, a hint of rain from earlier, and the neutral, reassuring smell of a home lived in rather than staged. The scent wraps around memory and present and makes them both small and manageable. You let the scent settle against whatever remains raw from the day, not to fix, but to smooth. There is an ease in the privacy of this room. You do not perform. There is nothing to render. The curtains are drawn partly, a curtain of their own, against view and being viewed. You can see the world you inhabit from within, and that vantage feels like a kind of permission that needs no articulation. The space is curated by accident and habit, by the small choices that have accumulated over time, where a plant sits, which mug was chosen for morning, which coat was hung where by someone who knew where you prefer things to be. These choices feel like a lineage of domestic knowing. of hands that have learned how to keep you included without making the act loud. On the table, a small note lies, the handwriting familiar. Not a manifesto, but a brief, quiet sentence left on a day where speaking felt harder. It was placed there without ceremony and picked up without comment later. The note's existence is a kind of care, unobtrusive, simple, letting you carry what you need without demanding return. Chosen family shows itself in these small exchanges. The tacit agreements to be present in the margins, to leave a space open that can be entered without negotiation. The room is threaded with that kind of care. It is a domestic tenderness that is not performative, a tending done without need for visibility. You notice the way the air feels cool at the back of your throat, how your body inclines toward warmth when it is present. You let yourself choose a sweater from the folded pile, fingers finding fabric that knows your shape. The sweater slides over your shoulders, and the weight of it is a small anchoring force. The action is mundane. Its ordinariness is precisely what makes it consoling. You are not remaking yourself tonight. You are not polishing. You are allowing the small comforts to collect around you like soft stones, each one heavy enough to keep your edges from fraying a little more. Time moves in slow increments here. There is no rush to resolve anything that felt unresolved earlier. Instead, there is an acceptance of things remaining, as if some questions can sit beside you, like companions who do not need a reply. That acceptance does not feel like surrender. It feels like an economy of energy you are practicing without naming it. The night allows some things to be unfinished and keeps its distance from the imperative to tidy every corner of your interior life. The lamp dimmer is a subtle thing, and you find yourself lowering it by a notch, because the light is kinder, at the softer level. You do not do this to chase sleep. You do this because softer light keeps the edges of the day from clanging into the contour of now. Shadows lengthen and wrap themselves around familiar objects, and the room recoils into a hush that feels protective instead of expansive. In that hush, you feel the intangible presence of others who have been part of your evening. Those who shared a meal, a couch, a glance. You hold those presences quietly, like photographs turned face down. The images still known but not displayed. There is a small, steady contentment in not having to explain how you arrived here. The night steadies you in that small way. The home is a map of choices that make space for you, sometimes without announcement. You inhabit that map, drifting between lamp and window, cloth and chair, note and mug. The room is patient, and you learn to be patient with yourself. There is no grand unburdening happening tonight. There is the soft unfastening of the day, the gentle loosening at the seams, the way familiar objects accept you back without question. You stay in this soft geometry for a long while, hands resting, eyes tracing the edges of light. The apartment is not tidy in the way of a showroom. It is lived in, bearing the gentle traces of who comes and who returns. That trace is enough. It allows you to be present in a way that does not require you to perform origin stories or explanations. The room and its modest, kind objects are a kind of shelter that does not insist on being elaborate. It keeps its promises simply. It offers warmth. It keeps silence. It refuses to make your presence a spectacle. In the middle of all this, your thinking becomes less urgent. Thoughts wander and arrive in softer forms, more like acquaintances dropping by than messengers with instructions. You let them sit where they are, without rearranging them into anything more significant. The night receives them without comment. There is a steady, unassuming generosity in the way this evening holds you. No miracles, no proclamations. Only the quiet, adult recognition that some nights are for putting yourself down gently and letting the ordinary elements of a home do the rest. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp beside the couch gives the room a skin of warm yellow. It pulls the light over an arm of a chair, and a stack of books whose spines are softened by repeated handling. The rest of the apartment keeps a patient darkness. Curtains not quite closed, so the city lights sketch a slow sideways constellation across the window glass. Somewhere beyond, a bus sighs and moves on. A neighbor's radio is a pleasant, distant wash, and the building itself makes those small adult sounds of cooling and settling that remind you things are held together, even when they feel fragile. You have been moving through hours that once required explanation, and always curious vulnerability under fluorescent or public eyes. Tonight, that pressure has loosened at the seams. It does not disappear. It simply becomes less interesting than the immediate texture of this room and the way your shoulders are remembering how to lower. You are on the couch, where a faint imprint outlines the place you settled an hour ago. A second mug sits on the low table, the rim stained by a tea you began and set aside. There is no urgency about finishing it. The cup is companionable in its incompletion, a small object that says you were here. You paused. Nearby, a cardigan that once wore someone else's sleeve next to yours is folded and left where it fell, a soft archive of earlier closeness. The cardigan's wool smells faintly of laundry detergent and the imagine of a late laugh. Not loudly so, just a suggestion that something tender took place and is allowed to remain private. A pair of shoes rests by the door, a quiet punctuation mark to the day. These things do not demand that you make them mean more than they are. You think of the quick, bright moments from the evening, the way light struck a face and made an angle you keep returning to in your mind, the exchange that wasn't heavy but was real, the part of you that is practiced in showing while protecting. There is a part of you that catalogs these small successes, neat and almost ceremonial, and another part that collects the little stumbles, like brittle leaves, a laugh that came too sharp, a joke that missed its mark, a sentence you would like to leave unspoken. Tonight, you let those leaves lie without sweeping them into a narrative of failure. You allow yourself the odd, affectionate self-critique that whispers, "You were clumsy here, you overshared there," and you hold that whisper like a fragile thing, noticed, acknowledged, not acted upon. It is a different kind of attention than fixing. It is quieter. It is more domestic, like folding a sweater you know you'll wear again. There is a comfort in gentle diminishment, a soft putting down of the day's demands that isn't punishment. You notice how your hands rest on your lap, how the fabric of your pants is cool against your skin, where the light doesn't reach. The hum of the refrigerator becomes a tranquil metronome. You think about the small tasks left undone, a dish in the sink, a light left on in the bathroom, an email that will wait until morning. They are not edicts, they are lightly present, like bookmarks in a book you will return to. The absence of urgency around them is its own kind of care. Somewhere in another room, a plant leans toward what remains of daylight, and you consider how slowly it takes what it needs. You match its rhythm in a private, unspoken way. There is chosen company in the room, even when you are alone. The cushion to your left still bears the impression of someone who sat beside you earlier. A photograph on the wall captures a messy dinner. Hands mid-gesture, a plate tipped, a candle that burned too low, kept not as a monument, but as a conversation partner for nights like this. The sense of belonging here is not loud. It is the quiet accumulation of small, shared routines. There is safety in the way things are placed. A jacket, folded over a chair arm like a promise to return. A grocery list, tucked into the cookbook, you both reach for. A lighter that lives in the same bowl as the keys. These are the domestic traces of intimacy, unvarnished and ordinary. They make the apartment feel lived in the best way, not staged, and they allow you to be small and soft, without turning that smallness into a problem. Your thoughts circle, sometimes pleasantly, sometimes in that weary looping way that follows visibility. Earlier, you wore parts of yourself more openly than you do in other places. You notice the reciprocity and the things that didn't land. Those memories come without instruction. You do not resolve them. You do not plan reparations. You simply let them inhabit the room with you. Some of your self-sentences tonight are tenderly sarcastic. You tell yourself, in a voice that is almost a smile, that you should have been smoother, or wiser, or quicker with compassion. And then you let that sentence fall, soft and unobtrusive into the air like a note that might not deserve an encore. There is a care here that doesn't demand change. It holds the texture of the evening in place and lets it rest as is, appreciable without needing to be polished. Time behaves differently under this lamp. Minutes do not rush to become decisions. You track them by the way shadows lengthen on the carpet and by how the room cools at the edges. You reach once for the mug and set it down. The clink of ceramic is an honest sound that breaks the hush without claiming it. It is enough to make small movements, rearranging a throw, smoothing a crease in a blanket, turning a page of a book without reading anything more than the margins. These motions are domestic rituals, not prescriptions. They are ways of occupying the present with hands and with small, quiet attention. There is a kind of respect in these acts, respect for the slow work of settling, for the dignity of being unfinished. You do not offer yourself sweeping declarations or vows. There is no need for large pronouncements tonight. The apartment accepts you as you are, tired, a little raw, rendered more honest by proximity to others earlier in the day. You notice how the space allows you to shrink without shame, to fold inward like fabric placed gently into a drawer. That folding is not a retreat, it is a storage of warmth. You keep a mental inventory of what fits, a memory you like, a joke that landed, a silence that felt mutual. Each item is small and practical, useful only inasmuch as it comforts in the present moment. Outside, the city breathes and does not demand your attention. Inside, your light is steady. You imagine the people in other apartments doing similar small acts, their own mugs, their own cushions, their own reasons to pause. There is an unspoken kinship in parallel slowing, a communal hush that feels like a soft network of lamplit islands. You rest within that hush without needing to explain how you got there or what you will do next. The care that surrounds you tonight is unadorned. The presence of objects, the residue of company, the way the room preserves your small, honest mistakes without turning them into tests. You allow the idea that some nights are meant for gentle put-downs of self to sit beside you, unagitated. It is not harshness, it is a tender inventory, light critique wrapped in companionship. You keep that tenderness close, like a folded cloth that will warm hands later. The apartment remains steady as you move through this slow evening, offering the unremarkable but vital assurance that being small and imperfect is part of the furniture here. You stay in that company, breathing quietly with the room, carrying soft thoughts like objects you will place on a shelf and leave be until morning. The lamp on the side table gives off a wide, yielding circle of light that rests on the arm of the couch and travels like a soft invitation across the rug. It makes the room look as if it were tilting slightly toward one side, as if everything has given up a small, comfortable angle and stayed there. The cushions have the gentle imprint of where you sat earlier. The fabric remembers the shape of you, as if memory lived in threads. A second mug sits on the low table, the glaze catching the lamplight in one warm line near the rim. Not quite empty, but not full either. It's the sort of small evidence that the evening contained someone else at some point, or that someone else's presence was considered. You notice it without needing to assign meaning to it. Noticing is softer than deciding. Your breath lengthens in a way that isn't dramatic. It happens slowly, like a tide that adjusts itself when the moon shifts a fraction of a degree. The sensation moves through your chest, and then lingers in your shoulders, which seem to lower a little without fanfare. Your attention narrows along with that breath. Thoughts that held the days, gravity, conversations, a name that kept repeating in your mind, the weight of an email, begin to sit on the edge of awareness like things placed gently on a table. They are there, but you are no longer arranging them. Instead, your senses take over in a way that asks nothing of you except to witness. The texture of the blanket at your knees is small and intimate. It is a dependable fabric, not new, with tiny pulls where fingers have found it absent-mindedly. You press the back of your hand against it and feel the contrast. The coolness of the room air, meeting the warm softness of the weave. It is an ordinary intimacy, the kind of closeness that comes from domestic life. The knowledge of how a sleeve folds, how a cushion gives under weight, how a curtain sighs when a breeze finds the gap. There is a private language in these things that doesn't need translation. Beyond the window, the city makes a low, anonymous sound. It is softened by distance and the thickness of the glass, more of a suggestion than a presence. A car that hums past, a far-off radio that has settled into a background rhythm, the hush of tires on a wet street. If there was rain earlier, the light outside is cobalt and slightly unsure, making the shapes of buildings into softer suggestions. Sometimes a window 2 floors up lights and shows a rectangle of life for a moment. Someone moving a chair, a plant leaning toward light. Then everything smooths back into the city's slow, continuous exhale. It makes it easy to feel both connected and secluded, as if the world beyond the glass continues without needing your attention. Your hands rest on fabric and wood and the smooth rim of the mug. The sensation of warmth from the cup spreads, minimal and unobtrusive, finding the tiny lines at the base of your palms. You notice the little differences, the way the handle fits the slope of your thumb, the faint ring it left on the coaster when it was set down. Objects hold traces of intention in small ways that do not announce themselves. They are quiet testimonials to living. There is a softness in knowing that things will be here in the same place tomorrow if you want them, and also that they will not command you to be anything other than present for them. You feel the pattern of your breath as a slow counterpoint to the room's faint noises. In that rhythm, small physical details become anchors. The pulse at your wrist, steady and unobtrusive, marks time without urgency. The skin at the base of your neck cools as the lamp's warmth fails to reach it fully. The tiny tick of the clock on the bookshelf, softened by distance, measures minutes in a way that feels generous rather than strict. The fabric of the couch cups your hips, and the seams press into the outline of your body, as if to say that shape is precisely what it is meant to hold. There are traces of other people's evenings folded into the room like bookmarks, a jacket thrown over a chair, like a casual promise not to be tidy right now. A small stack of books, one with a dog-eared corner, that hints at reading interrupted, perhaps to answer a text, perhaps to respond to a knock at the door. A few dishes rinsed and left to dry by the sink, the water line catching the lamplight briefly before sinking back into the kitchen's quiet. These domestic signs aren't declarations. They are private punctuation marks that say simply, "Here was life." It is comforting to be cradled in that ordinary continuity. Your attention narrows to surfaces and edges. You notice the way light pools at the foot of a lamp, the warmth sliding across the table's wood grain, how the shadow of a curtain hem makes a soft arc on the floor. The sensory world is small and contained but rich with nuance. You become aware of the temperature in the room as if it were a presence, held back air that is neither warm nor cold, but exactly what it takes to be still. Your jaw unclenches under its own accord. You do not examine why it was tense, you simply notice that it is not now. Time moves without pressure. Minutes pool like shallow water, each one mixing with the next, until the day feels layered rather than sequential. Memory flares in a few soft edges, something someone said in the course of the evening, a laugh that had the particular cadence of someone you know well, a look that landed and softened before passing. These recollections do not demand interpretation. They exist as colors in a muted palette. You observe them like paintings hanging on a private wall, and they are warm to look at without needing to be rearranged. Your body's sensitivity to touch becomes more pronounced in ordinary ways. The fabric of your shirt grazes your skin, and you note the seam's texture. Your foot finds a familiar dent in the rug at the edge of the couch, and so the fibers give underweight just right. A thread of hair falls across your forehead, and your fingers move to tuck it back as if on habit. The motion itself, a small kindness. These gestures are neither purposeful nor performative. They are the slow choreography of being held in a domestic space, where small needs are met in soft, quiet motions. You let your attention trace the edges of the room with no urgency. The lamp, the second mug, the jacket, the book with its creased spine. They form a constellation of ordinary points that map this moment. There is a subtle rehearsing in your mind of nothing at all, an absence of mental errands. Instead of trying to solve or change, you catalog textures and sounds with a gentle curiosity. The inner critic, the part that kept tally through the day, sits at the periphery like a faint echo. It has less volume here, its outlines blurred by the room's comfortable acoustics. You do not try to quiet it, you simply do not invite it deeper. Outside, a window light shifts as a neighbor moves from the kitchen to the living room. Inside, a radiator emits a minuscule metallic whisper as it cools down. These small acoustic stitches keep the space felt rather than hollow. The air holds a faint, neutral scent. Clean linens, a hint of whatever was cooking earlier. A distant hint of night air that slips through a hairline crack in the window. Smell becomes a companion in quiet ways, not loud, not demanding, simply present. Your thoughts do not need to gather into a narrative. Instead, they ripple and settle like small stones dropped into a pond. Each ripple is observed, and then allowed to recede. Your attention prefers the immediacy of sensation now, the soft give of the cushion beneath you, the way the lamp makes a gentle halo around the mug, the cool touch of the windowsill against your fingertips when you rest your hand there for a moment. The world narrows in a way that feels like acceptance, not as an arrival, but as a current you are floating in without resistance. You spend a while in this narrowing, where the pace inside you aligns with the pace outside, unhurried, uncomplicated, undemanding. The room and its small objects keep you company without trying to change you. The traces of other lives and the evidence of your own earlier movement make this place feel inhabited and private at once. In the hush, the living details, fabric, light, sound, and temperature, hold the present gently, letting you exist within it without ceremony. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The room keeps the history of the evening without pressure. On the low table, a second mug sits within reach of the couch, a quiet punctuation mark in the soft lamplight. It is not recent enough to steam when you touch it, but warm enough to remember the movement that warmed it. The cushion next to you is gently indented, as if someone had been watching the same small corner of the ceiling, retelling nothing and holding everything between two breaths. You notice these things without obligation. They are simply true and gentle as furniture. There is a jacket draped over the back of a chair, the sleeve folded in the way someone does, absent-mindedly, looping a sleeve around a knuckle before abandoning the thought. A book lies open, face down on the arm of the chair beneath it, as though a chapter had been surrendered mid-sentence for reasons that do not require explanation. These traces are not demands. They are friendly marks that say, there was company, and that company moved through the same light and air you still sit in. The apartment keeps them as if saving them for later, not because it must, but because it remembers the way quiet is made. Outside the window, the night has a flat, cool quality. The city breaths are distant, softened by glass and curtains. You see the faint flicker of a street lamp reflected against the pane, a slim line of amber that moves as cars pass further away. The sound from the street is almost a texture rather than a sound, a rap of other people's ordinary lives, continuing with none of the urgency that makes your chest tense. In here, the lights are lower, the lamps chosen to be companions rather than spotlights. Shadows bend and rest against corners, and you feel the small pleasure of familiar shapes. The couch remembers you. The room remembers the rhythms you both shared tonight. There's a faint scent in the air that is neither sharp nor exact. Clean cotton, the faint sweetness of something that cooked earlier, and is now a memory rather than a presence. The coolness of evening. It is like a hand on your shoulder that does not insist on anything. You touch the fabric of your sweater with your fingertip, feeling the soft give, the small, anonymous comfort of texture. The fabric answers with a familiar, pliant softness, and for a few minutes your thoughts contract to this small, tactile loop. You take nothing from it. You simply notice the way the material supports the weight of your wrist. A lamp throws a pool of light over a small stack of dishes in the sink. They are not a problem. They are a record of company and shared convenience. A tiny domestic ledger that speaks of a dinner that did not need to be performed, and of hands that reached for the same fork. You look at the cups, at the smear of sauce on the rim of a plate, and you feel the uncomplicated warmth of closeness without labels. It is a warmth that lives in small things. The way someone folds a napkin, the angle of a glass left on a coaster, the way a conversation repositions itself to rest. These things are not explanations, they are evidence that the evening existed and did not demand anything more. Your phone is face down on the side table. Notifications sleep. There is no need to answer the soft blinking of other lives right now. The quiet around the device feels like a protective cloth over the day. Not avoidance, not denial, simply a lowering of volume so the room can be heard. You breathe with that lowered noise, matching the small, slow bubble of pause that the space offers. Nothing needs to be restated or reproved. The room offers you this pause as a given, an ordinary kindness. At some point, a playlist paused. Earlier sits with its last track, frozen at a gentle bridge. The music is not absent so much as held, like a hand waiting in the pocket of a jacket. You listen to the little heartbreak of the pause, to the way sound would return if it were wanted. There is tenderness in that holding, an unspoken agreement that nothing must be fixed or completed tonight. The pause itself is its own kind of company, an acoustic version of the room's unwillingness to force action. There is a small lamp on the bookshelf that casts a soft halo across titles whose spines know the knuckle of your thumb. Some books are stacked flat, others upright, the spines bearing notes of care. Tabs, slightly bent corners, the occasional fold. The presence of these pages suggests a person who returns, who inhabits the slow practice of reading and then going about the rest of life. You trace this idea with your eyes, not with thought, but with feeling. Recognition at the unhurried rhythms of an ordinary evening. The room is full of small, slow evidence of time lived and lived again. A blanket folded at the arm of the sofa is within reach, its edge slightly ruffled where it was tucked mid-conversation. You move the blanket with the tip of your fingers, feeling the softness and the memory of being wrapped up in someone else's laugh or a quiet exchange. The movement is minimal, reverent instead of utilitarian. The blanket is a repository of warmth, not for heat alone, but for the sense of shared proximity it implies. You let your fingers rest there for a moment, enjoying the soft friction and the tiny weight of fibers beneath skin. Light from the hallway enters in a narrow strip when the door at the end of the corridor, half ajar, lets it slip through. The light is cool and slatted, a contrast to the lamp's gentle pool. It marks the threshold between the private world and the world beyond, reminding you that this room is a sanctuary of particular temperature, smell, and shape. You notice how safety sometimes shows up as a small margin of privacy. Curtains drawn to a specific degree, A door closed softly rather than slammed shut. Voices lowered to keep the house itself at rest. These gestures are not formalities. They are the architecture of comfort. You consider the evening as if it were a dish left to cool. Not ruined, not perfect, just finished in its own terms. There is no need to scrape the last of it from the bowl or to put it back together. The place holds everything without demanding a tidy ending. The presence in the room is not a pressure to speak, to clarify, to perform. It is a patient recognition that there are parts of you that do not require rescue or explanation, merely quiet company. The air in the room is still and indifferent in the best possible way. You inhale and find the breath easy. You do not owe the night any drama. The things around you, the second mug, the jacket, the paused music, keep a soft mutual witness. They are not witnesses in the way a spotlight witnesses. They are witnesses like a friend who nods and continues knitting. The room allows you to acknowledge the complexity of the day and to let it sit beside the present without being drawn into it. In this space, small domestic details become a gentle language. The angled lamp says, "We are together here." The empty cup says, "You are not alone." The folded blanket says, "Warmth is available if wanted." Each element speaks without coercion, offering company as a fact rather than a prescription. You rest within that offering, not because it solves something, but because it recognizes that rest is sometimes the only honest response to a day that was full in ways both tender and tiring. The night outside continues in its own hush, and the room continues to hold its own quiet choreography. You settle into the contours of the couch and accept the room's ordinary attentions. Things are as they are, soft, slow, and unassuming. You do not need to claim them. You only need to be with them, and they are with you at the same gentle temperature of the evening. You occupy that small orbit of the room where lamplight softens any hard edge. The lamp on the side table is low, its shade a pale fabric that warms the air around it into a pocket you can rest inside. The couch has the exact imprint of where you settled earlier, a gentle hollow at the seat, and a faint crease along the back where you leaned. Your sweatshirt is folded on the armrest, half warm from your body a short while ago, and a second mug sits on the coffee table. A thin ring of steam now offered to the empty space where someone else might have set it down. Nothing in this room demands explanation. Nothing waits with an agenda. The objects keep their small confidences. Your awareness moves without hurry. One moment it rests in the slight pressure of the cushion beneath your hips. The next it drifts to the way the fabric brushes the inside of your wrist. You notice the cool curve of the window glass when you pressed your palm there a while back. The faint, steady shimmer of an apartment across the way, where a television paints a corner of light. Outside, the evening is a muted map. Cars sigh past, footsteps fold into distance. The city holds its breath behind the buildings. Inside, the air is steady, carrying a little of the night's dampness and the neutral scent of fabric softener from the laundry pile in the basket by the door. There's no sharpness. Even the small noises seem softened at the edges. Memory of the day sits like a low lamp on the other side of the room, not bright enough to disturb this quiet, but present enough that it shifts when you notice it. Events feel like objects on the shelf, handled, set down, not arranged into a grand narrative. You catch yourself moving through them like someone touching the spines of books, feeling the texture of a conversation's cadence, the weight of an exchanged look, the way a presence lingered in a doorway. Nothing here is urgent. You can let each moment stand as it is, simple in its own shape, rather than demanding significance. There is a sense of shared space threaded through the room that doesn't insist on being named. The extra mug, the jacket tossed over the chair, the small plate with a chip where a fork struck it once. These are the remains of ordinary generosity. They suggest that someone else moved here too, once or often, or that another life folded into this one for a stretch of time. That trace is neither loud nor cloying. It is simply part of the layout of the evening, like a second pillow, or a patch of light where two shadows once overlapped. It makes the quiet feel held, as though the room has a memory of company that cushions the present. You notice how your hands understand the contours of the things nearby, before your mind does. Fingers find the edge of a book, follow the seam of the cushion, brush against the smooth ceramic of a mug, and feel the remaining warmth like a tiny pulse. There is an ease in those movements, a small domestic literacy that needs no language. You know which blanket tucks most comfortably around your knees. You know the pattern of the curtains and where the thread has loosened at the hem. These private knowings are a kind of safety. They do not shout, they simply exist as proof that you belong in this small geography. The lamp makes soft shadows that move slowly across the ceiling as the building settles. There is a faint hum from the refrigerator, an evenness that threads the silence. When you inhale, the air brings a trace of damp from outside. The smell of the city at night filtered through closed windows. It holds no sharpness, only the uncomplicated hint of otherness beyond the glass. You rest your forehead lightly against the window pane and watch the room reflected there. Furniture, a plant leaning toward the light, the sleeve of a sweater draped over a chair. The reflection blurs the line between inside and outside in a way that feels comforting. Everything is close enough to touch, but comfortably removed from the day's demands. The body unlaces itself in small ways. Muscles that held attention during interactions earlier loosen with an almost imperceptible surrender. The jaw unclenches, shoulders untangle from a posture adopted for being seen. You trace the pattern of your breath against your ribs and notice the slow place where your heartbeat is only a suggestion. There is no push to make anything different. Instead, there is a patient acceptance of the present textures, the coolness of the window, the give of the cushion, the weight in the lap that might be a well-worn blanket or simply your hands folded together. Each sensation is an understated presence that does not demand a response. Your thoughts drift between the room and the remnants of conversation, between the small joys and the unfinished sentences that hang like mobile ornaments. They do not press, they are simply there, moving through your awareness like a soft current. You might return to a phrase that felt significant earlier, then let it roll away as easily as a pebble across water. Or you might linger on the echo of someone's laugh, not dissecting it, merely savoring the way it fit into the evening. There is a strange tenderness to this indirection, as if the mind is allowing feeling to pass through, without pinning it down. Light and shadow find new ways to soften as time moves in the room. The lamp is a steady companion, its glow enough to keep the corner from becoming an anonymous dark. The lamp's small circle of light is a place where tasks that belonged to earlier hours were left unfinished. An open book, a notebook, with a pen resting across the page, a playlist paused between tracks. These are fragments of attention. They do not demand completion. They simply sit, patient and unfussy, the way people who know you well will leave a light on in a hallway when you come home late. There is a privacy here that feels like a blanket. Curtains drawn, the world outside becomes a soft suggestion, rather than a series of obligations. The apartment holds its minor disarray without judgment. A jacket slung over a chair, a saucepan in the sink, a ring of steam where coffee cooled to a memory. These small signs of life are familiar and forgiving. They are like letters from a friend who knows you well enough to leave the front door unlocked. That looseness is itself a quiet form of care. You find you can move at the pace you want. Hands smooth the fabric of the couch. Fingers linger on the spine of the book. You notice the slight warmth left on the armrest where someone else rested their arm, and the knowledge of that warmth settles into you as a gentle companion, an implicit proof that presence existed and can exist again in a way that does not require explanation. The room keeps its traces without insisting they be accounted for. As your awareness floats between body and room, the quiet becomes less like an absence and more like a presence in its own right. It supports without intruding, offers space without presumption. You let it hold you for a while, feeling the subtle exchange between the inner landscape of thought and the outer arrangement of objects. There is no narrative pressure to make anything whole. There is only the slow, steady act of being somewhere that knows you, offers comfort through ordinary things, and asks nothing in return. When you shift, the sound is muted. A small rustle of fabric, the faint creak of an old hinge, so soft that it seems to sink into the room, rather than announce itself. You settle again, and the lamp continues its patient glow. The second mug sits quiet on the table, no longer steaming, but still a reminder of shared ordinary rituals. The apartment breathes with you, a companion that is quiet, accommodating, and unhurried. You stay, simply present, letting the evening move around and through you with a soft, steady rhythm that does not conclude, but holds. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You sit where the couch has already remembered you, the indentation warm enough to be an argument for staying. A low lamp on the side table pulls light like a patient hand. Nothing sharp, just a shape against the dark. Beyond the window, the city breathes in long, slow rhythms. Cars passing like exhalations, a distant music thread that never quite arrives at the room. The glass holds those movements like a film. They are outside you, and at the same time, part of the room's skin. There are small acknowledgments of a life lived in company. A second mug sits on the coffee table, cooling in a soft ring on the wood. It's not empty the way an absence can shout. It's quiet the way a presence can linger. A cardigan is folded across the back of a chair, careful and imprecise. Someone paused and set it there, as if they might return. Books are stacked into an accidental tower, pages yawning open and closed in the same places they always do. When the light begins to bend, these traces sit like companions who have already left the talking to the objects. The air smells like fabric recently washed and a hint of the street after rain. It's a neutral, honest kind of scent, not done up or scented to perform. You breathe it in and out and notice how your chest keeps a steady, small rhythm. Your hands rest against the fabric of a throw. The weave is soft and the color has faded into something familiar. The cloth shifts under your fingers in a way that says, you can move if you want, but it will not insist on anything. Sound in the room is a soft arrangement. The refrigerator breathes in the corner, an appliance doing its low commitment work. Pipes settle as the building remembers temperatures. A neighboring window emits a laugh that is already cooling into the night. Nothing here is loud enough to wake you, and nothing is so silent it forces you to listen to yourself too closely. The balance is one of letting the world be itself nearby, without asking for responses. Your thoughts are small and slow, the kind that fit into the space between a breath and a blink. Earlier, there were things you showed, some public, some private, some held in a gaze shared and then released. The echoes of those moments are not sharp. They are like the aftertaste of tea, not bitter but not particularly sweet either. You consider them without untangling them. They exist as part of the evening, acknowledged and set down on the coffee table beside you, like a book that may be opened again tomorrow. There is a particular tenderness in this kind of quiet. It does not rush to fix or explain. It holds the shape of unfinished feelings without trying to fill them in. You recognize that tension and allow it to remain unremarked upon. To let things be unsettled is sometimes the most honest form of care. The room provides that permission implicitly. Every object seems to approve by simply existing. A thin blanket drapes over your knees, cool at the edges where it first touched the air, warmer near your center, where your body has made its imprint. You shift, ever so slightly, and the cushion returns that small movement, with a soft give. The lamp slips from bright to dulled by the turn of a hand. The light moves across the walls and creates long, forgiving shadows that soften the corners of the room. In this light, abrasions become muted, the small imperfections of the night smooth into texture, not trouble. You notice how time behaves differently when motion is minimal. Minutes stretch into the space between heartbeats and do not demand to be counted. This looseness is not emptiness. It's a kind of gentle expansion where the day's edges can round. The internal list of things to resolve sits, gradually less urgent, like objects left to dry on a rack. You do not pick them up. They are allowed their quiet. Your phone is face down on the shelf. A small light rests where notifications might have lived, and you let it continue to sleep. The choice to ignore it is not a performance of discipline. It is a simple agreement with the night to leave its small storms alone. There is comfort in not converting every pause into a task, in letting the world move on without you filing each moment into an app or a memory. There is a photograph on the mantel, its frame slightly askew, caught in the act of leaning. The people in it look ordinary, heads tilted, hands close. A mirror of a night like this one. You do not explain who they are to anyone, not because it's secret, but because the image is already intimate by itself. The relationship recorded there is not a certificate or a headline. It is a quiet witness to nights that accumulated into a pattern. You let the photo simply be a presence that sits in the room. Your breathing finds a cadence that lives at the edge of noticing. Each inhale is steady, then released as if the room were a place that knows how to exhale with you. Sensations move slowly back and forth across your skin. The cool of the blanket, the warm pulse at the base of your neck, the slight friction of the sofa fabric. They are unremarkable but for the fact that they exist and are met without judgment. There is a particular softness to the idea of being seen and not having to answer for it. Maybe earlier you met eyes and were noted. Maybe you swallowed words and were still held. Perhaps someone made a small, ordinary gesture like pouring wine or leaving the light on in the kitchen. Those moments do not need to be translated into meaning. They sit in the room like agreeable furniture, useful, familiar, easy to rest against. You observe this without parsing it, without making it into a map. Outside, a light changes and the street tilts from one rhythm to another. The change is not dramatic. It is a tiny rearrangement of the night that makes the world feel newly ordered in an inconsequential way. You think about nothing substantial for long enough to appreciate the absence of urgency. There is no need to solve anything tonight. The room wears that absence like a coat. Your fingers find the rim of the mug and trace it, slow, a deliberate exploration that is not instruction. The surface is slightly cool where the liquid has receded. The motion itself is unremarkable, but it holds the quality of being gentle, without being performative. You do not make promises to yourself. You do not plan. You simply attend to these small acts because they are available, and because they feel like company. Some nights compress into a single narrative. Some nights allow things to sit unsaid and unarranged. This one leans toward the latter. It offers a kind of merciful unbusyness where the world is not asking you to produce meaning. It is a space where you are permitted to be a collection of soft motions and vague thoughts, where the evening is not a production, but a presence. The room feels like an envelope, folded around you with edges softened by light. There is no urgency to move beyond its border. The objects inside, mug, cardigan, book, lamp, are companions that do not require conversation. They are enough in their quiet, and your being here with them is part of the furniture. As the minutes continue into their low, unpretentious way, the night keeps its steady, inclusive pace. Your attention thins into an even film, over things, not absent but unobtrusive. You remain, a person in a warmly lit room, allowing the day's colors to mute without demanding they vanish. The night offers steadiness, and you receive it with the same calm, the same minimal movement that has come to feel like a kind of respect. Respect for small rhythms, small traces, and the unremarkable grace of simply being somewhere safe, enough to lower the volume of everything. The lamp on the side table is the only bright thing in the room. It throws a soft circle of light across the couch, where the fabric bears the slight sag of someone who has been here before tonight and will be again. You can see in the way the cushion gives the memory of weight, not precise, not sharp, simply recorded. There is a second mug on the coaster by the armrest, a faint ring of steam long gone, and the smell of whatever was inside, mingled with the general warmth of the room. The second mug is not an argument or an invitation. It is an ordinary leftover, a trace of someone else or of a different moment of you, quiet as punctuation. Your shoulders are a little lower than they were at dusk. It happens in small, almost imperceptible stages. One shoulder loosens while the other remembers how to stop holding up a front. The jaw releases a tiny notch. A hand rests on a lap instead of bracing. There is nowhere urgent to be, no persona demanding to be maintained. The effort you carried all day, the neat, careful tension that kept thoughts in place and faces curated, has a way of easing along the ribs and out through your fingertips. You notice it without making it mean anything. It is simply less. Outside, the night keeps its conversation to itself. A distant car passes like a low sentence. A building settles with a small creak that could be a house exhaling. The curtain stirs only a little where it meets the frame of the window. Beyond it, shapes blur into a darker quiet. The city, or the trees, if that is what presses at your glass, is a softened presence. Inside, the air holds the neutral scent of clean fabric, and whatever minute trace of the evening lingered, a citrus, note, the almost faint trace of a parked someone's jacket, the perfume of dinner cooling on plates now stacked in the sink. Everything is muted in a way that feels protective, like the room has been intentionally softened for the sake of not having to perform. There are things folded in a pile on a chair near the door, not neatly, familiar folds, the kind made by hands that know where to rest. A sweater with a sleeve turned wrong, a shirt that has been smoothed like a small apology. You can see the crease where a pair of jeans were folded earlier and never quite tucked in. These little disarrangements read like a map of an evening. How you moved, where you paused, the way you kept certain small comforts close enough to reach. They are not evidence of failure. They are the quiet ledger of a life that includes unevenness. Your face in the window reflection looks like you from tonight and from less curated nights. The edges softened by the glass and the lamp. There is a kind of leniency in that reflection. Without the hard light of daytime, or the sharp lenses of performance, the features rearrange themselves into something less decided. The need to file details into recognizable slots. What you present, what you hide, what you affirm loudly or tuck away, feels distant. The sense of self here is porous and forgiving. You recognize the relief of not needing to define each line, to sculpt an identity for the world. It is an odd, gentle freedom, a rest that is not about erasing who you are, but about letting it be simply present without constant attention. A playlist you opened earlier hums at a volume that could be called considerate. The songs do not insist. They sit like a companion who reads over your shoulder and keeps their voice low. You let them do that. Perhaps there were messages on your screen earlier, brief glimpses of other people folding themselves into your evening. A thumbs up, a heart, a short sentence that had weight before and now is light. They remain unread or half answered, and that too is permissible in this room. The phone sits face down, its glow a distant, unnecessary thing. You are collecting the softer moments and allowing the rest to gather around them. Sometimes you reach for the blanket not to wrap, but to let your fingertips note the texture. The soft, brushed cotton at the edge. The way it pills slightly where it's always been folded. Hands are occupied with small examinations that insist on no agenda. Fingers trace the rim of the mug, the worn place where a ring of condensation once sat. You find comfort in repetition without purpose. The slow rotation of the mug in your palm, the careful smoothing of a cushion, the way your foot traces the outline of the rug. These actions do not aim to fix anything. They are gestures that signal to your body that it is allowed to rest from the labor of being tidy and watchful. There is an old photograph tucked into a book on the coffee table. You did not put it there tonight. It lives in that book as if it had been waiting. And when you look at it, your attention is soft. The faces into the photo are familiar in the way chosen family can be. A folded-in closeness, elbows touching, angles that speak of inside jokes and shared floors and late-night pizza. You do not analyze who they are, you simply recognize the warmth of being in a room with people who know how to be both tender and ordinary. The image does not require explanation. It offers the sense of belonging as a quiet fact, no parade necessary. It is part of the room's light, a small supporting beam. At some point, effort drains in ways that feel unremarkable. The checklist that used to run like a low radio under everything. The needing to appear settled, the needing to be witty, the needing to be approving, loses its station. Your inner voice quiets like a neighbor closing a window. You are left with simpler things, the rhythm of your breathing, the small architecture of your body against the couch, the music that hums without permission. The self that remains is not less, it is less directed. It rests without the errands of presentation and performance. There is no declarative relief, no tidy sentence that announces this new state. There is only a gradual, unremarked loosening. You notice, too, the small signifiers of privacy, arranged like careful clutter. A jacket flung over the back of a chair that smells faintly of someone else's cologne, or maybe just a city's air. A lamp left on low, because the other bulbs are too bright for this room's mood. The door unlocked in case someone should come by and your body wants them close without the show of being ready. These choices are not theatrical. They are practical intimacies. The comfort of leaving a space in a state that assumes occasional, gentle company. The kind that does not require announcements or performances. The presence of these things in the room is a soft acknowledgement that life includes others sometimes, and that their traces are welcome but not commanding. As the minutes thin, your sense of needing to be exact about anything diminishes. You do not tidy everything. You let a book lie open, the page face down as if the story will wait and not care how long it takes. The lighting stays the way you liked it in the first moments of the evening, not bright enough to insist, not dim enough to obscure. It is a measured neutrality that supports rather than directs. You move through the room in gentle arcs. Your motions are pared back. There is no push to create meaning from the small things. Their meaning is simply in their being. This is not the moment of transformation. It is not the reckoning or the decision. It is the small, quiet unfastening of effort. You are permitted to remain in the space between doing and being. The world outside continues with its soft noises, and the room keeps its dim attention. There is a comfort in this unremarkable continuity, a feeling that the self can rest, not because everything has been resolved, but because resolution is not necessary here. The evening holds you in low light, in the presence of familiar objects and other people's small traces, in the hush that comes when the mind no longer has to calculate every line. You are simply allowed to be less deliberate, and in that allowance, something like ease collects around your shoulders like a shawl. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp beside the couch gives the room a gentle slant of light, as if someone has nudged the day to one side and allowed the night a little margin to breathe. The lampshade hums a soft, warm color across the ceiling. It makes the small crease where the couch cushions meet look like a valley you could rest a hand in. You sit there with the weight of the day folded into the fabric, an indentation that maps where you have been, and the rest of the room answers in kind. Nothing loud, nothing demanding. A second mug sits on the coffee table, the rim showing a faint circle of where it has been set down and left. You know, without needing to think, that it belongs to someone who shares a space sometimes, or to an evening that came and went without a fuss. Its presence is a small, wordless proof that lives overlap gently here. There are clothes folded on the arm of the chair, a shirt maybe, a scarf, the thin sweater you reach for when the temperature suggestion outside becomes tangible. They keep their shape, patient and unbothered, each fold a quiet, pragmatic form of care. A stack of dishes sits by the sink, a deliberate little pile of an ordinary life. The top plate has a smear of something you remember tasting earlier, a memory you can access without reopening the whole day. You move your hand over the back of the couch, fingers tracing the weave of the fabric. It is familiar and mildly rough under the palm. It's a texture that means home without insisting on it. Outside the window, the city settles into its softer octave. Streetlights throw long pens of light onto pavement. Cars roll by like distant thoughts. When you look, the glass catches reflections of inside and outside in a single thin layer. The lamp, the outline of the couch, your silhouette. The blurred suggestion of trees beyond the farthest building. The night air sits cool against the panes. But the room's breath is warmer, a slow exchange of heat and calm. The faint hum from the heater, more whisper than sound, keeps its patient rhythm. There is a small sort of peace in the predictable noise, the way the apartment itself is steady and fulfilled by the presence of things and people who live in it. You notice the playlist that is paused halfway through a song you like, the album cover dimmed on the little screen. It's not important that it's stopped. The pause feels like a punctuation mark, a deliberate silence that has weight. The music lingers as a suggestion, not a command. You let the silence have its own edges. Your phone lies face down on the table, chosen not for secrecy, but for the shape of stillness it offers. There is no need to check it now. The conversations of the day, the messages, have been folded away into the same soft pile as the sweater. They exist with dignity, but they do not ask to be reopened. You feel the mattress of the couch beneath you, the way it gives evenly, like a quiet agreement. One cushion is angled beneath your knees, another tucked behind your back. They do not demand that you fix them. You shift to find a new point of comfort, slow and deliberate, as if experimenting with the possibility that small adjustments can be forms of kindly attention. Your fingertips find the edge of the throw blanket, its fringe catching briefly on your knuckle. The fabric smells faintly of detergent and rain, and the trace of a person who sometimes leaves it here after, lingering. There is a domestic intimacy in the thing, an ordinary, unspoken closeness that is not performative, just present. Light casts soft shadows across the bookshelves, where titles stand in their quiet order, spines forming a soft skyline of other people's thoughts. A bookmarked novel sits with its ribbon peeking, patient and private. An envelope rests beneath a stack of coasters, the handwriting on it familiar enough that you let it be unopened for the moment. These small objects keep their own histories in a low voice. You can approach them later if you wish, but tonight they simply share the room, companions in stillness. There is a rhythm to the night that is not metered to urgency. The radiator ticks. A neighbor's gate closes into the distance. Somewhere above, someone moves carefully, making sounds that are domestic. Steps, the quiet scrape of a chair. None of it interrupts the mood so much as add to its texture like thread through fabric. You listen without needing to interpret. The space feels deliberately non-judgmental, a place where accumulation, the small detritus of living, exists without needing resolution. Nothing needs to be cleaned up, not tonight. Nothing needs to be explained away. Your thoughts come and go like the traffic outside, sometimes lucid and sometimes hazy. A line from an old conversation drifts in, then dissolves. A feeling you noticed during the day returns for a moment, loosens its hold, and leaves again. You do not press at any of these things. There is a kind of permission in the ordinariness of your apartment that makes it possible to let a feeling be as small or as large as it is, without insisting on meaning. You acknowledge, in the way you might acknowledge a passing cloud, that some emotions look for explanation, and others prefer to exist, unexamined. A half-light shift occurs as you adjust the lamp's angle, the room deepening on one side, brightening on the other. Shadows lengthen behind the books, and the couch seems to exhale. You notice the warmth in your hands where they rest on your knees. Your breathing is steady, simply another quiet thing. There is no checklist being followed, no nighttime routine to be completed with performance. Instead, your evening resembles a slow untying, where the tight knots of daytime loosen without ceremony. There is a hush in the house that feels intentionally private, like a curtain drawn for you alone. It is not solitude that feels exposed. It is solitude that feels safe. The city beyond continues on its own, but inside is a human geography you know intimately. The route from couch to kitchen, the small dent where your partner, if there was a partner tonight, sat and left a residue of warmth. The way the lamp brightens the corner, where a plant leans toward it. There is a chosen family warmth in these traces, a network of quiet intimacies that do not need to be explained. You trace the rim of the mug beside you and find a small ring left by condensation. It is an unimportant imperfection, and that is precisely what makes it precious. A sign that something happened here recently, that someone's hand rested near yours. There is a humility in such proof, a refusal of spectacle. The room keeps these small narratives tucked away, not hidden but held. Time in this hour is pliable. Minutes move like soft threads, pulling gently at the fabric of thought. You allow yourself to be near to everything without resolving it. An unresolved chord that sounds okay. Nothing tonight needs to be fixed. The idea is not to heal or to decide, but to inhabit what is present. To feel the evening settle around you like a familiar coat. The quiet is a companion that does not ask questions. You stay where you are, anchored by the low lamp and the small pile of dishes and the presence of the second mug. The night performs its usual acts. Lights blink, a distant siren passes, a refrigerator hums, while the inside of the apartment holds steady. You are not required to do anything more than be here, in a place that is tender in its simplicity. The day can remain busy elsewhere. Tonight you are allowed to do less and feel held by that very doing. There is a soft permission in this. The evening is long enough, slow enough, to let your attention wander and settle where it will, with no penalty for lingering. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You arrive at this room the way you arrive at many small refuges, slowly, with the edges of the day still clinging to your shoulders. The doorway is a soft threshold. The lamp by the armchair throws a round of low light that makes everything near it the color of warm tea. Beyond the window, the night is cool and steady, a dark sheet with distant lights stitched into it. You move without hurry, because the urgency of the day has already loosened its grip, and there is no need to gather the scattered pieces tonight. The pieces are allowed to be where they are, left on chairs, folded into corners, resting on tables with the patience of things that will wait. There is a second mug on the coffee table, a quiet sign that the evening had room for company, even if that company is gone. It sits beside a small stack of mail, a paperback with a bent spine, a pair of gloves that were taken off and not quite folded. The mug still holds a faint warmth. You place your hand on ceramic without thinking about temperature, more as acknowledgement. Here was warmth. Here was another presence. The cushions of the couch accept you easily, giving in that particular way that says they have been sat in before and know how to be useful. You sink in and feel the outline of your body met by memory, the dip where you like to rest your arm, the little ridge where a cushion is more compacted than the rest. The room keeps you. The room does not ask for explanations. Your hands find the soft throw draped over the back of the couch. Its weave is cool in the parts that brush the window, and slightly warmer where it folded over the sofa. You draw it around your legs as if to tuck the day itself inside. The fabric smells like clean laundry and the faint trace of something outdoors, wet pavement, distant green. It is an everyday kind of scent, not sharp, not intrusive, a neutral companion. You notice the small things because they are honest. A dent in the armrest where a hand has rested, a faint coffee ring on the side table, the shadow of a curtain line across the floor that moves imperceptibly as the building breathes. These details keep you anchored more effectively than any tidy summary ever could. From somewhere, a washing machine finishes, a soft chime swallowed almost immediately by the walls. The sound is domestic and unremarkable, but it lands against your attention in a way that feels like permission. To be small, to be unadorned, to be allowed to exist within these ordinary noises, you watch the light change little by little. It pools fuller on the book you left open, then narrows as a car passes and the streetlight catches the glass. Outside, people go on with the lives that are not yours, and that does not bother you. There is a comfort in their continuity, a balm in the knowledge that nothing about tonight depends on you rearranging it. There was a conversation earlier, minutes or hours that still exist as a soft glow in your chest. It is not pressed into you like a task to finish. It hums faintly, not demanding. You let it sit there, a quiet ember. You do not feel compelled to extract meaning from it or to prosecute its every thought. It can be what it was, a shared stretch of time, a letting out of breath. The feeling of being seen is a gentle bruise. It needs warmth and time, not analysis. You hold the memory like a fragile cup, careful not to clatter it against the realities of the rest of your night. There are traces of chosen warmth in the way the apartment is arranged. A jacket draped over a chair that is not yours. A phone charger tucked into the other side of the couch. A playlist that was allowed to play until it faded. These things are small, private signposts, meaning that this space has been used and returned to by someone who knew how you liked the lamp dimmed and how you preferred your tea. The familiarity is not performative. It is plain and steady. It is language without words, an understanding that rests in objects and in light, and in the precise tilt of a blanket on a chair. It feels like safety that is invented rather than declared. Your breathing is quiet. You notice it only because it occupies the space you left when you shut the door. There is a rhythm to it that does not demand attention. You might count it if counting were something your hands wanted to do. Instead, your thoughts drift like things left to dry. Some settle, some remain in the air. The mind offers you images, the corner of a kitchen you wiped clean, a hallway conversation that was more about warmth than content, a text message with a single small punctuation that meant more than words could. You tuck each image back into its place. There is no urgency to understand them. Tonight they are allowed to be simple presences. You let your fingers move over the soft fabric of the throw again, following the seams with a deliberate slowness. A moment arrives when you realize that nothing tonight requires your fixing. Not the stray dishes stacked politely in the sink, not the unread messages, not the habits and half-made decisions that usually crawl back at you with the morning. They sit like stones in a dry riverbed that you do not need to pick up now. The relief of that is quiet and luminous. You can be present without being responsible for the entire world's neatness. There is a light outside that passes slowly along the opposite wall. Its movement is calm, like a hand sliding over an object to find where it rests. Your shadow expands briefly, then contracts. The sofa takes the shape of you again and again within the same breath. Your thoughts become less like a line and more like small islands, each one accessible if you choose to swim, but each content to be left where it is. You do not push them into motion. You do not coax them. There is a patient acceptance that is not a resolution. It is a kind of giving space to the parts of yourself that want to be quiet. A soft sound reaches you, the muffled steps from the apartment above, a kettle boiling a block away, the distant rhythmic tapping of a keyboard from a neighboring window. These noises are not intrusive. They are companions in the stillness, like neighbors at a dinner party who have retreated to their own corners and whose presence reassures more than distracts. You find comfort in the persistence of ordinary life, continuing in parallel. It is a texture rather than a narrative. It allows your breath to find its own cadence. You notice the small ways your body adjusts to the room, your shoulders falling, the tiny repositioning of a knee, the loosening of a jaw. Your hands rest on the throw and then unfold onto your lap, palms against fabric, then returning to the curve of the cushion. Each small movement registers as a gentle tidy of tension. The work is simple, and the reward is immediate. There is no triumph attached to it, only a soft permission to be where you are without further motion. At the edge of your attention is the knowledge that there will be mornings again. Things to decide, messages to answer, meals to plan. But that is not the urgency of tonight. Tonight invites a different logic. Nothing needs to be addressed. You can hold that idea without turning it into a duty. It sits like a gentle weather pattern above the room, present but unobtrusive. You breathe into it. It loosens the fixed lines across your forehead and lets the face you wear rest in a way that feels neither shallow nor theatrical. There is a quiet, companionable intimacy in the room that is not performative. It is the kind of closeness that comes from shared routines and small, unspoken agreements. That mugs can be left on coffee tables, that chairs can bear the weight of a jacket, that lights can be dimmed without explanation. You inhabit that intimacy with a steady, unremarkable gratitude that does not demand pronouncement. It is enough to notice it, to let it be, and to let yourself be contained by it. The night keeps its steady pace. You keep yours. In this room, where the light is soft and the world outside goes on with its quiet motion, you allow rest as though it were a simple, unhurried conversation with the air itself. Nothing needs to be fixed tonight. Nothing needs to be articulated. The small, ordinary tenderness of the place is enough. An entire shelter made not of answers, but of gentle continuance. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You notice the way the lamplight pools on the arm of the couch, how it makes a small, private harbor out of the ordinary fabric. The rest of the room is softer, held in the dim, but that curve of light holds detail. The little crease where your hand rested earlier, the tiny pile of lint you almost always ignore, the threadbare spot on the cushion that has the memory of an evening repeated. There is a second mug on the side table, its rim still carrying the ghost of a conversation, the faint ring of warmth where fingers once wrapped it. You do not catalog what it meant. You let it be simply present, another thing that shares the same low-lit space. The window is a dark sheet, slightly reflective, carrying the faint motion of streetlights and the silhouette of a neighbor's plant. Outside, the night is cool and the city breathes at a slower rhythm. A distant bus brakes and sighs. A building creaks as it settles into its own temperature. These sounds are companionable, distant enough to be background, but close enough to remind you that life continues just beyond the pain. The air by the window is a hair cooler than the air near the lamp. When you move your fingers across the glass, they meet a polite resistance, the slight chill pressing against the warmth inside. This contrast is ordinary and safe, like the way skin remembers both heat and cool, with equal nonchalance. Your sweater lies folded on the back of a chair, the sleeve turned inward, in the precise way it always is after you move. There is a jacket tossed over the radiator, someone else's scent faintly mixed with yours, an absence of labels, a familiarity in starch and fabric, and the way pockets keep secrets. The folded shirt on the floor is proof of a day that happened, small evidence that time was used and contained, that actions happened and now sit quiet. The pile of dishes into the sink is casual and honest. Their slight clatter when you went to the sink earlier is now a memory that feels neither messy nor tidy. Everything here bears the soft traces of people settling into evening. Not because something dramatic happened, but because things simply happened at human pace. Your breath has a rhythm that belongs only to your chest. You feel its length and the way the rise of your ribs has softened since you first sat down. There is no need to measure it, no need to coax it into something it is not. Awareness is enough. The tiny tension beneath the shoulder blades, the loosened jaw, the way the fingers find the edge of the blanket and rest there without gripping. Time stretches. There is no urgency in its extension. The hours lay themselves out like a familiar map. You do not have to read closely tonight. It is a map folded flat, not in preparation for travel, but simply because it is comfortable to keep it so. A playlist sits, paused a few inches away, the cursor resting between two songs that could have sounded brighter earlier. Now the music is a possibility, a soft undercurrent rather than a demand. You remember the laugh that came with one of them, the small correction of a lyric, the way voices layered over coffee and late light. Those moments remain slightly luminous when you touch them with memory, but they are not required to be relived. They float where they have always been, like paper lanterns settling against the night. Having been seen is a particular weather. It leaves a residue you can feel if you move slowly enough to notice it. The residue is neither heavy nor light. It simply is. There is a book on the coffee table, its spine crinkled in the place where you always leave your thumb. You turn it with a nudging motion, not to read, but to feel the small, familiar weight of a thing that knows the pattern of your hands. Sometimes objects do this work for people. They hold the memory of small rituals, the way you fold corners, the habit of tonguing a thought before deciding whether to say it. Tonight you find comfort in these tiny continuities. They are not prescriptions, they are not proofs. They are quiet agreements between you and the room that the same small things can exist here, unremarked and steady. In the kitchen, a light hum comes from the refrigerator, the kind of sound that could be mistaken for distant conversation if you let it. It is a domestic punctuation, steady, reliable, making the room feel inhabited in the most ordinary sense. The kettle's imprint on the stove is a faint ring. The tea inside the mug has cooled enough to be safe to touch, but still holds the memory of heat. Your fingers linger on the mug's lip, noting the texture, the tiny imperfection where glaze meets clay. These details are not dramatic, but they are honest, and they keep you anchored to the present. They remind you that the world is built of small, steady things that need nothing of you beyond being noticed. You think of the day without trying to untangle it. The moments of being seen, brief conversations, a look that lingered, the tired tilt of a friend's voice, are there like constellations that you could connect if you wanted. But tonight the stars are content to hang where they hang. There is nothing to complete. There is nothing to unfix. You let the edges that might usually prick stay soft instead. The urge to do something with everything is absent. Instead, there is a slow folding of attention inward, not in order to solve, but in order to sit with what has already happened and let it sit back. The couch holds you with a quiet fidelity. It has the memory of your weight in its cushions and the gentleness of depressions that have formed over time. You notice how your hip leans into the fabric, how the texture meets your skin, and the sensation is more like an old friend than an object. Your feet find the rug, and the fibers cradle them differently from the floor. There is pleasure in this small differentiation, the coolness of floorboards versus the soft embrace of woven threads. No moral weight attached, only a plain fact that registers and then rests. There is a photograph leaned against the bookshelf, its frame modest and familiar. The picture is not something you need to explain. It is a plane of light holding a smile that belonged to some other evening. A pairing of hands on a table, the tuck of a jacket over a chair. It is neither trophy nor manifesto. It sits there, a gentle marker of belonging in a room that knows how to hold presence without making a spectacle of it. The photograph and the mug and the blanket and the music cursor are companions by association, muscle memory of familiar atmospheres that have nothing performative about them. Your mind wanders in the spacious way it does when there is no deadline pressing at its edges. Thoughts arrive gently and then leave, without insistence. A phrase from a book surfaces, then fades. A smell from earlier in the day returns briefly and dissolves. You note, each thing like pebbles in a shallow stream. Their surfaces glint for a moment in the lamplight, and then the water carries them on. You do not need to coax meaning from their pattern. Meaning for tonight is into the noticing itself. Simple, unadorned. There is a certain generosity in quiet evenings like this. Not generosity that demands gratitude, but a quieter kind that invites you to be present for the small things without pressure. The room offers its soft lights, its ordinary sounds, its unremarkable objects, and you accept them with the same lack of ceremony. It feels like a slow inhalation after a day of being looked at, a pause that is not an erasure of anything but a settling of what already is. You remain here in the soft net of familiar things, not repairing, not declaring, just allowing the night to be as it will. There is no need to make declarations or tidy everything into sense. The lamp will continue to glow until it is turned down. The bus will make its slow circle until morning colors begin to alter the night's palette. The second mug will cool, and the dishes will remain in their domestic stack. These things will exist without you needing to manage them. For tonight, you are part of a room that keeps doing what rooms do, holding, keeping, witnessing in the quietest possible way. You rest within that company, letting the day fold, without judging the crease, letting the small domestic rhythms keep their steady beat, as you sit and notice them, and the rest that comes is unforced and gentle, like the steady, quiet companionship of light against fabric. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp by the couch pours a small pool of light over the coffee table, and the rest of the room makes polite, slow space around it. Shadows gather at the edges of the bookcase, soft and forgiving, like a hand that doesn't press, only holds. The couch remembers the shape of you from earlier, an impression, and the cushions that makes the space feel familiar, already claimed. There is a second mug on the table, a little ring of dried tea at its bottom, left there by someone who was here before, or who lives here, always into the small, ordinary ways of shared rooms. The presence of that mug is not loud. It is the kind of evidence that says nothing needs explanation. It is the unique punctuation of a life lived with others and alone at different hours, and it settles into the ready quiet of the room. You move slow enough that the fabric of the throw brushes the bare of your arm and then releases. The sweater you pulled off hangs over the back of a chair, folded in a way that suggests you considered more careful folding and chose not to. A pair of socks, not hiding, lie near the baseboard. The stack of dishes in the sink is not shameful, only a faint record of time spent in company and in personal domestic attention. There is a jacket thrown over the banister, a lampshade slightly askew, a paperback open to a margin you once underlined and then left. The traces are small and honest. They do not demand anything of you tonight. Outside, the night has a cool hush. Lights from other rooms in the building make soft, moving thumbnails against passing curtains. Somewhere beyond, the road hums along its steady rhythm, distant and patient. The window glass feels cool when you rest your palm against it, and your fingers leave no mark that anyone will look for. You watch a streetlight tilt its slow orange head as a delivery van rolls by, and the movement is almost ceremonial in its casualness. The world continues in its ordinary pulse, and the apartment holds a private slowness inside that larger current. There is a quality to this darkness that is not empty. It is full of tiny, ordinary intimacies. The way a lamp throws a triangle of warm light across an art print. The way the curtain gathers a shape that could have been a shoulder. The room is deliberately unfinished, which feels like a kindness. Unfinished things make room for breath. They tolerate pauses. In the half-light, you can give yourself the allowance of small, honest thoughts, without feeling obliged to tidy them into something tidy. The day's visibility, those moments when you were seen, noticed, perhaps more than you expected, sits like a soft residue behind your breastbone. You can feel it without having to name it. It is not pressing. It is a quiet bloom of fatigue and something like relief. You notice how your joints make small, familiar noises when you shift. The sound is nothing dramatic. It is domestic, like the paper-thin settling of a building at night. Each small movement in the room creates its own sentence. Your foot on the rug, the faint scrape of fabric, the mousy clink when you set the mug back down. Sounds do not announce themselves so much as settle like dust motes, coming into the lamplight and then floating out again. The hum of the refrigerator becomes a consistent, friendly undercurrent, the way someone's breathing can be when they sleep in the next room. It is a reminder of continuity, of small machines doing their quiet work so you can be quieter. There are moments when the mind wants to catalog everything that happened earlier, to run a tidy list of what felt right, what felt off, what words landed too sharp or too soft. Those lists are heavy if you lift them all at once. Tonight the lists sit folded at the edge of the table, not absent but not mandatory. You let one thought come forward at a time, like a cat deciding whether to join you on the windowsill. It leans in, sniffs, considers, then settles somewhere soft. Maybe you notice a laugh you gave that felt more nervous than you remember, or a look that lasted longer than you could easily hold. Those details visit and then move on. You are allowed to regard them as passing weather, not the landscape. There is a warmth tucked into this room that is not flashy. It is the warmth of a tea left to cool, of a scarf that holds the scent of another person in a way that feels like a secret the fabric keeps for no one but you. The scent is faint, clean detergent and a little citrus, the kind of smell that does not ask for an explanation. It reminds you that people leave pieces of themselves in the spaces they move through. A folded napkin, the bend of a sofa cushion, a pen left uncapped. These are the small signatures of chosen company, the kind of evidence that does not demand applause. They are companionship without ceremony, and their quiet is a shelter. You let yourself be curious about the softness in your chest, rather than worried about where it came from. Curiosity here is a gentle neighbor, not a taskmaster. You allow memories to arrive in their own tempo, uncoached. When an old ache makes itself known, a small disappointment or a phrase that stung, you feel it like a texture rather than a verdict. It is permissible to hold a memory like that without polishing it into either confession or armor. There is no requirement to tidy or fix. The room simply keeps you company while the feeling unspools at its slow, honest pace. Your hands rest on the blanket, fingertips finding the worn spots where your skin has pressed before. The fleece has a quiet history mapped into it. Tiny pilled threads, a faint discoloration where your hand often lies. These marks are not failure, they are attendance. They say you have been here. They say you returned. That is enough for now. The idea of doing better tomorrow is not pressed upon you. It sits like a distant horizon, optional and not urgent. The present is a low, steady lamp. There is a softness in the way the room seems to hold time. Light does not hurry to move. Shadows do not race to fill the corners. The night behaves like slow water, easing around stones. You find that your thoughts become less precise and more like shapes, rounded and indistinct, not demanding naming. If earlier you had to stand in the light and account for yourself, tonight the shadows keep a kind of truce, and you don't have to make any announcements. The privacy of the room functions as an unspoken promise. You can sit with what was said and unsaid without performance. Toward the edges of awareness, there is a near stillness, a quiet where nothing insists. The day compacts into small, manageable things. A laugh, a glance, a recipe you might try next week. They live in the room like timid visitors on the couch, comfortable enough to take off their shoes and not stay long. You let them be. There is no need to pick them up and rearrange them into meaning. They are allowed to exist as fragments, beautiful, awkward, human fragments, without needing to become a story with a tidy ending. You pay attention to the way the air carries the night. Cool on the window, warmer near the lamp, a subtle seam between them. The seams are unremarkable, domestic. They are what make the room hospitable. In that hospitality, you move a little less deliberately and a little more with softness. Your thoughts slow their pace. Sentences lose their sharp edges. What remains is the company of this gentle domestic night, a companion who doesn't ask for answers and won't take offense at the pauses. The evening keeps its gentle, unfinished quality. There is no resolution to be found here and no pressure to perform one. Instead, there is simply the presence of small things, a second mug, a sweater, the cool touch of glass at your palm, the low hum of the building. They are the quiet materials you can rest in for as long as you need. The room does not solve. It simply holds, with a calm that feels kin to the parts of you that want to be seen, and the parts that prefer to remain soft and private. In that holding, the night gives you room to let go a little, to let thoughts soften into the same dim light that bathes the couch, and to be, without explanation, enough for this moment. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You are very much in the middle of a particular kind of evening that asks for little from you. The lamp by the armchair pours a small, steady pool of amber that makes the room look like something handheld and careful. Curtains hang heavy and still, where the window meets the night. Beyond them, the city keeps its small, distant pulse, a leaking constancy you do not need to watch. A second mug sits on the coffee table, ring of dried tea at its rim, as if someone else had a mind to stay a while, and then did not. The air is neither warm nor cold. It is a neutral field, the kind that favors softness and lets edges settle. You sense the room before you name it. Fabric gives under your weight, a memory in the cushion's curve that remembers earlier evenings, and the shape of bodies, and the way laughter moves through a room and slows. A folded sweater rests on the back of the sofa, a color you like because it reads familiar in the lamplight. A stack of books leans just so on the shelf, a slight sag that speaks to use rather than display. There is the quiet sound of the building itself, pipes settling into night, a board in the floor cooling in a long, patient creak. These are the small domestic confidences that make the place a private thing, rather than a stage. Nearly nothing insists on your attention. Thoughts arrive like small waves at the edge of awareness and then pause, hanging in the space between you and the lamp. You notice the cool of the windowsill when your hand finds it without thinking. The contrast between skin and glass, a minor pleasant sharpness that fades back into the room's muffled warmth. Your heartbeat, if you listen, is a tidy pace you know by echo, not urgency. Outside, headlights smear along the pane, slow bright lines that pass and are gone. Inside, the light remains steady, and the steadiness feels like a friend sitting very close and saying nothing. Memory doesn't press. The day's edges are present but softened, as if they have been tucked carefully into a drawer that you do not need to open. You find small things visiting you in a distracted way. The smell of the tea that cooled on the table and then became simply an object. The way the chair's arm warms to the imprint of your forearm. The vague outline of a song you heard earlier that no longer wants to be remembered fully. Each impression is like a pebble dropped into a wide, very still bowl, and the ripples dilute into a calm surface. You allow that dilution to be enough. There is a quiet intimacy in the arrangement of objects, a familiarity that does not require naming. A scarf hangs from a hook, just tall enough to brush the doorframe, folded over itself the way it was left. A lamp with a slightly dented shade carries its dent, like a small personal history. You notice the way the curtains catch the lamplight along their pleats, the soft lines like a hand's resting. These details do not demand explanation. They are simply things that show the room is lived in by someone who makes small claims on the space. A jacket thrown over a chair, as if a person might come back to it. A notebook whose last page is dog-eared. A candle stub that remembers a night when it burned, long and unhurried. You move with a careful slowness, as if the room's pace has pressed gently against the day and asked it to soften. Your fingers trace the rim of the mug. The ceramic is cool but not cold, the glaze slightly textured under your touch. You notice the faint fingerprint there left from earlier, a tiny smudge that means nothing in the grand scheme, and yet feels like proof that moments happen and then remain, small residues of presence. The cup becomes a kind of anchor, weight, shape, plain function. It does not carry a lesson. It does not offer a directive. It simply is. Attention swings loosely, like a lantern finding corners just long enough to let them be seen. One moment you look at the stack of maps in the drawer and feel a brief, unshaped yearning for somewhere near or imagined. The next you notice the pattern of light on the floor and how the edges soften where the rug rests. You do not need to arrange these noticing into meaning. They exist side by side without demanding you make them into anything that will hold forever. It is a small relief, this permission not to make meaning. You notice how quiet the apartment becomes when you stop trying to fill the space with sound. Not silence like a vacuum, but a padded quiet that holds all the small noises and lets them breathe. The refrigerator gives a singular, low buzz, a neighbor's television in tones of voice far away. Somewhere in the building, someone moves, and the sound is a gentle reminder of others near you. People whose lives brush past the same walls and stairwells, who live out ordinary things that are both private and not. The knowledge of that proximity is calming. It is the sense of being part of a network of small, contained existences that do not require your constant participation. Your thoughts do not cluster into a single thread. Instead, they unspool like soft yarn you do not aim to knit. You think of a sentence you almost said earlier, of a turn of phrase that didn't make the walk to words. You remember how the evening tasted when you stepped out into it. A little cool, a little like taking a breath that has been held. There is a tender patience in the way your mind moves through these traces. It does not insist on clarity. It allows fog. You find yourself okay with texture over definition. There is comfort in the way the apartment remembers what you like without ceremony. A lamp left low on the table where you know you will find it is a small archive of choices. A blanket is folded and then unfolded in the exact way that suits your needs. Even the mismatched cushion seems to know the Angle you prefer for leaning back. These are domestic kindnesses that go unnamed. They are the accumulated results of someone living in a place and making it suit the contour of their life. You benefit from them without a ledger. Occasionally, you let your gaze loosen and take in the room as a whole. It strikes you as small scale and adequate and private. Adequate in the old sense of meeting needs. Private in the sense of being a place where you can be unobserved, and therefore unperformant. There is no pressure to tidy up your inner noise, or to produce something from the stillness. The room holds you in its ordinary shape, and that holding is enough. There is a kind of unspoken companionship threaded through the space, subtle as dust in a sunbeam. It is the knowledge that this place has contours that match you, that objects remember you in ways that do not feel invasive. You notice that awareness like a pulse at the edge of knowing, soft and continuous. It makes the room feel communal without being crowded, intimate without asking for intimacy. You reside here with your own thoughts and the quiet artifacts of other lives that have brushed this place. Mugs, a jacket, a song hummed and left mid-note. Time in this hour is elastic. Minutes breathe and extend like a stretch of warm fabric. You do not work against the looseness of it. Instead, you appreciate the lightness of your attention and how it permits small things to be significant without requiring grand narratives. You let the day roll down behind you, not like an ending that must be accounted for, but like a garment you peel off because it no longer fits the moment. The room accepts that shedding with no judgment. Your senses move in measured arcs, grazes more than inspections. The taste of the cool tea lingers without demanding resolution. The texture of the throw catches at your fingertips like a familiar phrase. The air smells faintly of something that belongs outside as well, as in a wet street in the distance, a clean sheet folded into the cove of a drawer. All of it is diffuse, not urgent, and the diffusion is itself a form of comfort. You feel the evening around you as a gentle presence, and you respond in kind by doing very little. Things are quiet because you allow them to be, and in that quiet there is no necessity to fix or to explain. You sit in the middle of it, softly attentive, mildly aware, gently detached, and you find that being held by ordinary things is exactly what you need. The night proceeds with its slow generosity, offering small details and letting you receive them in no hurry at all. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp on the small table by the couch is the only insistence in the room. A warm pool of light that keeps to itself and does not ask for anything from the darker edges. You have left it low enough that the corners lie in gentle shadow, and from where you sit, the fabric of the couch is an even familiar weight beneath you. The cushion remembers where you settled earlier. It gives a soft, answering shape when your body reconnects with it now. The evening that felt full of small exposures, words said, gestures made, glances held, has softened into this steady, private hush. Outside, the night smells faint and cool through a slightly open window, something like pavement and damp leaves. Inside, the air is warmed by the lamp and carries the neutral, lived scent of your place. A sweater folded on the armrest, a faint cedar note from a box of matches, the clean linen of a pillowcase. A second mug sits on the low table, an understated sign of a presence that has left traces without needing to announce itself. The mug is a little chipped at the rim, glaze worn where hands have warmed it over many winters. There is a small ring on the table where condensation once pooled. You touch it with a fingertip and feel the coolness of the surface. Beneath, nearby, a stack of books slants like a leaning tower, some fiction, a slim poetry volume, a battered cookbook with splattered pages, each one an occupant of the night, quiet in its own right. A jacket hangs over the back of a chair, sleeve folded as if someone had promised to be back in it, or had simply taken it off and left it there, because the house felt private enough to be messy and safe The sound of the building settling is distant, soft like a breath. Pipes carry a memory of the day elsewhere, an interrupted cadence of other people's evenings. You listen without holding it apart from yourself. The noise in the lamp and the slight give of the couch come together like a small architecture of comfort. The curtains are drawn enough to keep the room close, but not so tight that the city's pulse disappears entirely. You see the occasional reflection cross the window. A car, a pedestrian, the warm box light of a neighboring apartment where someone else is making their own quiet decisions about their night. There is no urge to imagine what any of those lives are. They exist as parallel murmurs, and that closeness feels consenting rather than intrusive. Your hands find a familiar rhythm. One folds a sweater, resting on the arm of the couch, smoothing the fabric, and noticing the way the light collects in the knit. Another retrieves a small postcard from under a coaster. The handwriting on it slanted and comfortable. The ink slightly smudged where it was hurried at a cafe. The card is a small conversation kept in paper. No urgency, just a line about the city's rain, and a joke about a shared memory. You look at the joke without having to answer it now. You let it be a kindness that will wait. The domestic things around you, mismatched mugs, a bag left open on the floor with a scarf peeking out, a few dishes stacked neatly by the sink, are not signs of neglect, but evidence of having been lived in, of nights that were busy and mornings that were later than intended. They give the room the particular quiet dignity of imperfect habitation. There is a softness to the way you move. You do not aim for efficiency. Your motions are measured because the night invites them to be. Putting a small lamp on the shelf, turning the mug slightly to check for a forgotten teaspoon, adjusting the pillow behind your back until it fits like a small private alcove. These are not tasks but rituals of descent. Not to a destination, but to a steadiness. You notice the texture of the blanket across your lap, its weave catching the light in a dozen tiny patient ways. You brush your fingers along the edge and feel the faint fuzz of where it's been loved into softness. Things here are familiar without being uninteresting. They hold small histories, someone else's crumbs dried inside a bowl, a faint lipstick mark along the cup rim that says someone was here, and their presence, whether they stayed long or left early, continues to be part of this room's shape. You let your breath follow the slow rhythms of the space. There is an unspoken permission in the way the lamp keeps burning. It does not demand clarity. It does not expect resolution. You think of no grand endings tonight, no neat resolutions to conversations half complete. There is only the ongoing, gentle business of being in one place, of allowing layers of having been to settle. Your eyes trace the shelf where small objects live. The chipped ceramic figure purchased on a holiday. A photograph tucked in a thin frame, showing a pair of hands not quite centered. A playlist title scrawled on a torn paper. Those things are not declarations. They are small domestic marks that say you have chosen this place and this life for its particular kind of belonging. The photograph does not need a caption. The playlist does not require justification. The hand that rested on your knee earlier might be remembered as a warmth in your bones rather than a demand to be explained. Time here is unhurried, not because it is always free, but because you have allowed it the space to slow. You encounter your own thoughts as if they are objects on a table. You pick them up, turn them in your hands, and sometimes set them down again. There is no urgency to solve or to understand everything. There is only a patient, domestic attention that says, "This is how things are tonight," and tonight is enough to hold what you brought into it. Occasionally, a stray worry will pass, like a late tram light across the window, bright and moving, and then gone. You do not chase it. You notice the coolness where the air meets your skin, by the wrist, and let that sensation be as it is. Neither problem nor remedy, merely present. There is a chosen quiet in the room that feels like family without explanation, the kind of belonging built from small consistencies. someone else's mug warming the counter, a message thread left unopened because there is no need right now, a sweater carried home and folded because it has become yours in the gentle way things do. Privacy is safety here, not secrecy. You take subtle comfort in how the apartment holds you. The drape of the curtain, the faint scuff on the hardwood near the door, the way the lamplight catches the dust in a slow, deliberate way. These are the small textures of a lived night. They do not ask you to perform tenderness. They only allow tenderness to exist as an option, soft and unforced. As the hour moves, your thoughts become less precise and more like the lamplight, blurred at the edges, warm in the center. You do not need to narrate the events of the day. The memory of them is already woven into the fabric of the room. You notice the ease with which your hands rest against the blanket, the way the mug's thin porcelain hums faintly when you set it down, the contingency of things aligning without effort. The hush here is generous. It does not tidy you into something new. It simply holds the shape you have arrived in, with the small creases and quiet imperfections that make you recognizably you to yourself. There is no concluding gesture. The night continues to be a container rather than an ending, and you remain within it, present to the ordinary constellations of objects and sensations that make up this small world. You let the lamp be steady without deciding anything about tomorrow. You let the room be enough without needing to fix the day. The dim reflection in the window offers a softened double of this quiet presence, a mirror that acknowledges how ordinary it is to be allowed to be as you are. You stay here with that allowance, neither pushed nor pulled, in the simple company of your things and the gentle night that keeps them.